Chapter 132. With ulterior motives, the two of them laughed almost at the same time. They laughed with ill intentions. I didn't expect it. I thought I was the first person to find the ninth palace, but I didn't expect Brother Chin to be so secretive and have already found this place. If not for the coincidence, I'm afraid this year's All-Stars College's trial first seat would have been Brother Chin. What? The ninth palace is actually here? Chin Feng's expression was indifferent, as though he knew everything, but he shouted in his heart. Out of the corner of his eyes, a dusty palace appeared. This palace was originally hidden in the glacier, but when Qin Feng and Zhao Mingsheng were fighting, the sword Qi had broken down the ice, causing this hidden palace, which was only about 1,000 feet away from the ice cave, to be exposed. Qin Feng's eyes twitched. He didn't expect to find the last palace of the Snow Region trial by chance. This was really a case of planting flowers with the intention not blooming, but planting a willow unintentionally. The willow grows. An unexpected surprise. Seeing Qin Feng forcefully concealing the surprise in his eyes, Xiao Yuchan's eyes flickered with a trace of displeasure. Pretentious. You found a ninth palace a long time ago, but you still pretended not to know anything and acted surprised. Scheming B****TCH. Xiao Yuchan cursed in his heart. Qin Feng, we have already come to this step. Now, we don't have to pretend anymore. To tell you the truth, I am determined to obtain the All-Stars College's first seat. No one can stop me. You know your limits. Don't force me to take action. Xiao Yuchan's smile gradually turned cold as his words became unyielding. At the same time, figures appeared behind Xiao Yuchan. There were 7 to 8 youths, and each of them wasn't weaker than the late-stage 8th heaven of the martial Tao. You want to bully me with numbers? Qin Feng's lips curled into a cold arc. The blood on his hair had yet to dry, and his face had an evil charm. Xiao Yuchan could hear the sarcasm in Qin Feng's tone. Xiao Yuchan smiled faintly. Qin Feng, you and I are enemies now. This is not a duel. Qin Feng shook his head and pointed at the few figures behind Xiao Yuchan as he sneered. With just them, the expressions of the few youths behind Xiao Yuchan instantly darkened. They were infuriated by Qin Feng's disdainful tone. Xiao Yuchan stood proudly with his hands behind his back. He waved his hand to stop the angry youths. He was confident that victory was within his grasp. Qin Feng, I know you are strong. You have defeated Lu Qinyang. You do have the right to be proud. They all said that Lu Qinyang is the strongest one among us. They are wrong. You are wrong too. Lu Qinyang is nothing in my eyes. If I want to kill him, it will be as easy as crushing an ant. Xiao Yuchan clasped his hands behind his back. He was elegant and composed. His aura was natural. His gaze was indifferent and cold like a king. Ignoring Qin Feng's astonished gaze, Xiao Yuchan spoke with sincerity. Qin Feng, I admire your aptitude. You were able to reach this stage from a nobody. Regardless of aptitude or temperament, you are far superior to others. I will give you one last chance. Submit to me and follow me. All-Stars College and even Xingqian School will definitely have a place for you. Xiao Yuchan's gaze made Qin Feng feel very unfamiliar and uncomfortable. It was as though he was a beggar and had to immediately hug someone's thigh to achieve meteoric success. Otherwise, he would be a beggar for the rest of his life. Xiao Yuchan, what if I say no? The corner of Qin Feng's mouth curled into a sharp glint. He had already placed one hand on the ancient sword. If you don't know when to back down, then I have to show you my strength. Xiao Yuchan tilted his head and had a trace of coldness in his eyes. Even I want to vomit. Qin Feng turned his head. Where did Xiao Yuchan's confidence come from? Young Master Xiao, you have a precious body. Aren't you praising him too much by attacking him directly? Since this Qin Feng refuses a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, then leave it to us. Let's teach him a lesson first. A gray-clothed youth walked out from the crowd with a trace of viciousness on his face. When the gray-clothed youth was in the spiritual refinement hall, he was chased by Qin Feng until he had nowhere to run. In the end, he sold himself to Xiao Yuchan to save his life. In the past month, the gray-clothed youth had obtained many profound martial skills and secret techniques from Xiao Yuchan. He believed that his cultivation had improved greatly. How could he hold back now? He immediately jumped out. All right, Qian Kai and the rest of you have obtained my secret technique. Your strength is already incomparable to yesterday. However, you have to be careful of his divine ability. However, you don't have to be too worried. I have observed that his divine ability has a great manifestation. As long as you cooperate with each other, he can't do anything to you. Xiao Yuchan instructed the gray-clothed youth, Qian Kai, in front of him. He didn't take Qin Feng seriously at all. Qin Feng sneered but thought to himself, what happened to Xiao Yuchan? What made him so confident? According to Du Pingxiao's information, it seems that Xiao Yuchan rarely fought ever since he entered the snow region. He only fought once. However, this time, his attack was earth-shattering. He defeated a peak genius at the later stage of the 8th heaven of martial Dao in one move. From then on, he became one of the 5 war gods. Don't worry, young Master Xiao. The few of us have been nurtured by your secret technique. We're no longer the same as before. Capturing Qin Feng, who is only at the initial stage of the 8th heaven of martial Dao, is a piece of cake. Qian Kai smiled contentedly. At the same time, 7 figures walked out from Xiao Yuchan's side one after another. They lined up and stared at Qin Feng. They sneered as though they were staring at their prey. Ignorant ants. Qin Feng used Zhao Mingqing's words. He didn't even look at them and extended his hand. Instantly, the faces of Qian Kai and the other 7 froze. The next moment, their eyes revealed extreme fear. Pucci, 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 Pucci. Their bodies fell to the ground one after another. This is... Xiao Yuchan's face stiffened as he stood proudly with his hands behind his back. Instant kill. Qian Kai, who had been brimming with confidence just a moment ago, had been instantly killed. Furthermore, he killed 8 experts at the later stage of the 8th heaven of martial Dao in one go. What kind of savage beast ability did Qin Feng refine? Wasn't it water type previously? Why did it become ice type now? Xiao Yuchan was shocked. Clearly, Qin Feng's current strength was much stronger than when he was in the Spirit Refinement Hall. He had underestimated Qin Feng. A bunch of clowns. How dare such insignificant characters provoke me? Qin Feng extended his 5 fingers. Ever since he obtained the Frost Soul Spirit Spring and established the Azure Sea, Heaven, and Earth, the Khanate origin runes controlled by the Khanate Divine Ability Ocean seemed to have completed a portion of the Khanate runes under the stimulation of a high-grade Fae, like the Frost Soul Spirit Spring. It had advanced to a Rank 2 Divine Ability. The Rank 2 Khanate Divine Ability, Ocean Control, could control a radius of 6 feet from the Rank 1's 30 feet. Furthermore, it had an additional ability. Freezing Ice. It could freeze the water vapor within a radius of 6 feet into ice. At that moment, the lifeblood of Qian Kai and the other 7 had been frozen by Qin Feng, turning them into popsicles. The 3rd update will be at 1:30 p.m. The 4th update will be at 6 p.m. And the 5th update will be at 7:30 p.m. Chapter 133. Great Ability. This is the 2nd ability of your Water Elemental ability. In just a few short days, you were able to advance that divine ability to a Rank 2 divine ability. Truly shocking. Xiao Yuchan was indeed not simple. With just a glance, he deduced that Qin Feng had comprehended the wonders of a Rank 2 divine ability. However, this divine ability is useless against me. A faint purple light rose from Xiao Yuchan's body. Purple gas rose, impervious to all evils. Frowning, Qin Feng sensed that he could not control the blood in Xiao Yuchan's body. There was an extremely powerful force suppressing the blood in Xiao Yuchan's body. As steady as Mount Tai. Strange. My ability to control the sea is extremely powerful. Even some Meridian's condensation realm powerhouses might have their blood stirred. This Xiao Yuchan is actually fine. It seems like he must have some kind of spiritual item on him. No wonder he is so confident. So he has a spiritual item that can restrain my divine ability. Qin Feng pondered inwardly. His gaze flickered as he sized up Xiao Yuchan. attempting to find some clues. Give up. You're not my match. Don't force me to make a move, Xiao Yuchan said. Qin Feng sneered and shook his head. Xiao Yuchan, you want to become a powerhouse, establish a faction, and subdue people, but you are still too inexperienced. At this time, you are still spouting nonsense. Don't you think you are very foolish? Although Qin Feng said so, his heart grew heavier. For this Xiao Yuchan to be so confident, he must have some extraordinary means. Qin Feng, you are too ignorant. Ignorant to the extent of stupidity. Xiao Yuchan's face turned cold as a cold light shot out from his eyes. In an instant, Xiao Yuchan attacked. A stream of purple gas came crashing over like a long river. With a flash, Qin Feng executed Qin Feng's God-refining step and appeared 100 steps away. Rumble. The purple gas crushed over where he stood. Not far away, an ice wall was penetrated by the purple gas. It was like a sieve with thousands of holes, collapsing in an instant. Qin Feng saw clearly that the holes in the ice wall that was penetrated were uniform. The incision was bright, as though it was pierced by some divine weapon. This was a sword art. Xiao Yuchan's attainments in sword Dao were not weak either. And at that moment, Xiao Yuchan did not have a sword in his hand. He was blasted out by an invisible sword beam. 10,000 swords? Qin Feng murmured softly. People who practiced the way of the sword divided the way of the sword into several realms. The first of these realms was sword chi movement. The second stage was the 10,000 swords return to origin. At this stage, the innate sword chi would be like a rain of 10,000 swords. It was extremely powerful. The third realm was the formless heavenly Dao, and the fourth realm was sword flight. Qin Feng was also at the second level of sword principle, 10,000 swords returned to origin. To be able to possess such attainments in the way of the sword at such an age was undoubtedly extremely shocking. However, Qin Feng himself did indeed know that the reason he was able to possess such attainments in the way of the sword was mainly because of the legacy of his previous life. Xiao Yuchan had relied on his own talent to reach this step. This was undoubtedly even more shocking. What do you think of my sword? Xiao Yuchan leaned over and his sleeves fluttered. He raised a hand and made a sword gesture. Nothing much. Qin Feng sneered. You should also have a taste of my sword. Qin Feng's body was surrounded by an innate sword chi as a vast sword chi soared into the sky. Qin Feng raised the ancient sword with one hand as invisible innate sword chi poured into the ancient sword his hand. Innate chaos tidal extinction sword. Fifth revolution. The sword slashed down explosively. With a swing of his arm, a bright white sword beam descended from the sky. The entire ice cave seemed to be split into two by the sword. Previously, Zhao Mingsheng, who had opened the third mystic realm of the Meridian Condensation period, was killed by this sword. Rumble. It was an earth-shattering sword. The entire place where Xiao Yuchan stood was split into two by the mighty sword light with irresistible force. However, Xiao Yuchan was much luckier than Zhao Mingsheng. Before the sword beam arrived, he had already dodged it. It was like purple smoke. Xiao Yuchan's figure appeared 1,000 feet away. However, there was a lingering gloom on his face. What a powerful sword. Even a Meridian Condensation Realm expert would probably die from such a sword. It was unbelievable that Qin Feng, who was at the initial stage of the eighth heaven of the martial way, could slash out such a terrifying sword. The murderous intent in Xiao Yuchan's eyes intensified. If he couldn't use such a person, he could only eliminate him. Qin Feng, you shouldn't have the ability to slash out such a sword now, right? Xiao Yuchan walked towards Qin Feng step by step. When he raised his head, there was a chilling sharpness between his brows. Then come over, Qin Feng sneered. Xiao Yuchan's eyes were very sharp. Innate chaos tidal extinction, sword chi. Fifth revolution. Qin Feng could only slash out such a sword beam with all his strength. After the sword, the innate true chi in his meridians had dried up. However, Xiao Yuchan would never have imagined that when he slashed out, Qin Feng had already absorbed the torrential void, true chi from the void, and recovered completely. In an instant, The hidden injuries from forcefully circulating the fifth revolution of innate chaos tidal extinction sword chi were mostly healed. Ever since the Azure Sea heaven and earth reopened, the void, true chi absorbed by the Azure Sea heaven and earth tripled. When he was only around 100 steps away from Qin Feng, Xiao Yuchan's footsteps suddenly stopped. He stared at the black-robed youth with a frown. For some unknown reason, Xiao Yuchan felt a tinge of fear. Is he bluffing or not? Xiao Yuchan quickly dispelled this thought as he pondered inwardly. Qin Feng is very shrewd. He shouldn't be bluffing. Furthermore, he slashed out such a terrifying sword at the beginning. He clearly has an even more powerful trump card. Should I use the light god slaying technique? Xiao Yuchan pondered. What is this Xiao Yuchan up to? Why is my spiritual perception sensing an incomparably terrifying danger from him? Seeing Xiao Yuchan stop in his tracks, Qin Feng tightened his grip on the ancient sword. He actually had a terrifying feeling. Once he took the initiative to attack, something terrifying would definitely happen. This feeling came so suddenly that Qin Feng's heart was beating rapidly. I can't let him get close to 100 steps. If he dares to come within 100 steps, I have to slash out the sixth tidal extinction sword chi, even at the risk of rupturing all my meridians. Qin Feng's terrifying sword intent was stirring. Ever since he slashed out the fifth tidal extinction sword chi, Qin Feng's body's potential had been further developed. He could gradually adapt to the innate tidal sword chi's fifth revolution. However, if he forcefully slashed out the sixth sword, his body might suffer terrifying injuries. Forget it. Once I use the light, god-slaying technique, it will cause too much commotion and might cause problems. Most importantly, Qin Feng's body faintly gives off a sense of danger. Even if I kill him, I might suffer a terrifying injury. It's very easy for the Oriole hiding in the dark to take advantage of me. Xiao Yuchan dismissed the idea. After taking a deep look at Qin Feng, Xiao Yuchan's figure flashed and disappeared instantly. A purple gas appeared in front of the ninth palace and quickly disappeared at the entrance of the ninth palace. He is afraid. Xiao Yuchan's decisive retreat didn't surprise Qin Feng. As long as Xiao Yuchan was smart, he wouldn't use a method that would cause both sides to suffer. Qin Feng guessed Xiao Yuchan's thoughts. His eyes flickered as he chased after Xiao Yuchan like a breeze. In a breath's time, he also appeared at the entrance of the ninth palace and rushed towards the ninth palace. Qin Feng definitely wouldn't give up the position of All Stars College's freshman's first seat. Just an hour after the two of them entered the ninth palace, over a dozen figures appeared at the entrance of the ninth palace. The leader was a purple-clothed youth. He walked with majestic gait and had an oppressive air of nobility. His every movement was imposing, but the purple-clothed youth had a cold expression. He was Lu Qianyang. Behind him was Yuan Daojin and Li Qiubai. The fourth update is at 6 o'clock. The fifth update is slightly later. Tomorrow, it will still be at 5. Thank you for your votes. Please bookmark it. Please recommend it. Chapter 134. Lu Qianyang was originally looking at the ninth palace with excitement, but when he looked at the other side of the palace, his face instantly turned gloomy. Someone has been here. On the other side of the palace, countless pieces of ice had fallen. The surface of the ice had withered and was filled with sword marks. Obviously, there had been an intense battle here. One of them is Xiao Yuchan and his gang. Lu Qianyang's figure flashed and appeared dozens of steps away. At that moment, there were 8 people lying on the ground. Their bodies were frozen and their eyes were dull. They were Qian Kai and his gang who had been frozen by Qin Feng. I know them. The 8 of them are Xiao Yuchan's men. They have always been inseparable from Xiao Yuchan. They don't seem to be in a good situation. Li Qiubai followed closely behind with a frown. His expression was grave as he squatted down to check. It seems like Xiao Yuchan and his gang are one step ahead of us. However, they seem to have encountered a formidable enemy. Even their 8 lackeys were killed. They are half dead. Lu Qianyang's eyes flashed with a cold light. The other side should be Qin Feng. On the other side, Yuan Daojin squatted down and touched the sword marks on the ice surface. He tasted it carefully and came to a conclusion. Why do you say so? Li Qiubai suddenly stood up. Li Qiubai's face was gloomy. Regardless of whether it was Xiao Yuchan or Qin Feng, they were both formidable opponents in the fight for the seat of first seat. Now that he knew that the two of them had walked ahead of everyone, how could Li Qiubai sit still? There is no other reason. Only he can slash out such sword aura. Yuan Daojin stood up and patted the ice shards off his hands. There are a total of 2 types of sword marks. Their sword Dao attainments aren't inferior to yours and mine. Look at the sword marks on the ice surface. It has been quite some time, but there is still a dense sword aura remaining. Don't go near it. One of the 2 sword marks is vast and radiant with righteousness. The other one is like a huge wave in the blue sea with an endless tide. The last sword scar should have been created by Qin Feng. I've observed Qin Feng's sword attacks. His sword chi was like the waves of a long river. His sword strikes were like an endless tide. The sword scars created by this kind of sword light are very special and unforgettable. Then, who made the other one? Lu Kenyang suddenly asked. Lu Kenyang's face was gloomy. The trial this time was really full of surprises. A great enemy had fallen out. Lu Kenyang had learned to be cautious. As far as I know, among the geniuses admitted into All-Stars College this year, there are many who practice the sword. However, there are very few who are able to create sword scars of this degree. This level of attainment in the Sword Dao is at least at the 2nd stage of the Sword Dao, the myriad swords return to Origin Realm. However, I'm very familiar with their sword intents. This sword intent is very unfamiliar, but I have an answer in my heart. Who is it? Xiao Yuchan. It's actually him? His attainments in the Dao of the sword are so high. Li Qiubai was shocked. This Xiao Yuchan is really good at concealing himself. Xiao Yuchan is really good at concealing himself. Every time I see him, I always feel that he's a great danger to me. I originally thought it was an illusion, but now it seems like I was careless. I overlooked this great enemy. Lu Kenyang's face was gloomy. Such a conclusion was really beyond his expectations. This was a huge blow to Lu Kenyang, who had always thought that All-Stars College was the best place to live. It's Qin Feng who is even better at concealing himself. Yuan Daojin shook his head. To be able to contend with such a terrifying Xiao Yuchan and not be at a disadvantage. Qin Feng is the scariest person. Let's go. I hope we can catch up with the 2 of them and stop their progress. No matter what, the seat of All-Stars College's first seat must not be taken by them. Yuan Daojin's body revealed a trace of soaring fighting spirit. The stronger the opponent, the stronger Yuan Daojin's fighting spirit. After looking around, Yuan Daojin's figure flashed and rushed toward the 9th palace. Let's go too. Lu Kenyang glanced coldly at the nearby ruins. His figure flashed and disappeared from the 9th palace as well. A few figures rushed into the 9th palace one after another. 2 hours later, Du Pingxia and Lu Chunyang also found this place and rushed into the 9th palace. Qin Feng chased after Xiao Yuchan and entered the 9th palace's star palaces. This is really unexpected. To think that someone could break through the first 8 palaces and enter the 9th palace so early. In the star palace, a sonorous and strange voice that sounded like fine iron rubbing against each other was heard. It was a young man wearing a golden battle suit. He was so handsome that he didn't look like a mortal. His battle suit was dazzling. It was completely golden, but it didn't look like a simple decoration. The battle suit flowed with the radiance of golden stars. The helmet on his head even had 2 golden bull horns. He looked to be in his 20s and had a head of white hair that reached his waist. He wore a golden mask on his handsome face that covered half of his face. He sat boldly in front of a huge door of light, leaning on a terrifying golden greatsword by his side. Qin Feng's gaze immediately fell on the light door behind the young man. The Stargate? Qin Feng squinted his eyes. At the same time, Xiao Yuchan's gaze was also fixed on the huge light door. There seemed to be a strong attraction force there. The white-haired young man, who was so handsome that he didn't seem like a mortal, had an indifferent gaze and a hoarse voice as he spoke. Two little guys. I'm the guardian of the ninth palace and also the guardian of the Taurus star. You can call me the Taurus star general. I'm here under orders to guard the ninth palace and guard the Stargate. You might have noticed and guessed in your heart. You guessed right. This is the final goal of your mission, the Stargate. As long as you can break through my obstruction and enter the Stargate, you've passed the trial. For this stage, you can choose to go alone or together. It doesn't matter what method you use. As long as you can break through my obstruction, you've passed the trial. Speaking of this, the hoarse voice laughed strangely. Whoever enters the Stargate first will be the head of the new students of All Stars College. However, there can only be one first. Once this was said, the atmosphere in the palace instantly became subtle. I'll go first. Xiao Yuchan's gaze turned and shouted. His figure instantly pounced towards the Stargate. But in the next moment, the Star General pulled out the golden sword with one hand and swung it, slashing. A golden sword light slashed across. Xiao Yuchan's figure was instantly sent flying and landed not far from Qinfeng. Bang bang. Xiao Yuchan's figure landed heavily. The sound of bones breaking could be heard as he lay on the ground groaning. Terrifying. Someone as powerful as Xiao Yuchan couldn't even fight back and was sent flying by a slash. Qinfeng saw that this was the result of the Star General being merciful. At the last moment, he changed the sword's edge to the sword's spine and slapped away. He's at least an expert above the Meridian's condensing fifth secret realm, and his swordsmanship has at least advanced to the fourth stage, flying sword technique. Qinfeng muttered in his heart. He couldn't help but reveal a gloating smile. There's a fifth update tonight. Chapter 135. On the plaza of All Stars College, there were a few youths wearing silver robes with stars, suns, and moons on them guarding a door of light out of boredom. Above the plaza was a door of light that was emitting faint ripples. Door of stars. Below it were rows of tables and chairs. All Stars College's senior students, who were in charge of registration, were yawning under the shade of a tree at the edge of the plaza. One of the youths said lazily, "It seems like this year's newcomers don't have any outstanding aptitudes. It's almost been 2 months, and no one has been able to come out." Another white-clothed youth on the side sneered while lying on the table. "What's so strange about that? All Stars College has 4 major academies: Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise. Our Azure Dragon Academy's ranking has never been high, and our best result these years was only second to last. What's so strange about that?" The white-clothed youth shook his head and said, "Don't think about nonsense. You should think of a way to get some points. Don't end up like those guys who were eliminated this year and end up miserable." Every year, All Stars College's 4 major academies would have a large number of people eliminated, and at the same time, a large number of people would rush in. All Stars College's trial rules were only relative to the many countries at the edge of the geography. Actually, there was another way to enter All Stars College. That was to pay an expensive tuition fee and directly enter. However, this tuition fee wasn't just ordinarily expensive. All Stars College's tuition fee wasn't ordinary gold or silver, but abnormally rare phase, secret manuals, or other abnormally precious items. If it was changed to gold, it would be at least 100,000 taels. This kind of student had an advantage, and that was that they didn't need to participate in any cruel elimination trials. However, the disadvantage was also very obvious. In All Stars College, which had an extremely high elimination rate, this kind of person would usually be eliminated in batches. Among the students eliminated every year, this kind of college accounted for 99% of them. Therefore, such students also had a rather unpleasant name, which was called Donating Life. On the contrary, those students who passed the trials and entered All Stars College were called elite students. However, even though All Stars College's elimination rate was so high, every year there were still large numbers of Imperial family disciples who broke their heads to squeeze into All Stars College. All Stars College had tens of thousands of students, and most of them were donating students. Just as everyone was taking a nap under the shade of the tree, The excited voice of a young girl with a round face, wearing fiery red clothes, suddenly came from afar. Breaking news, breaking news. Someone from a Vermilion Bird Academy has successfully passed the trial. The new head of the Vermilion Bird Academy has been born. What? It's only been 2 months, and there's already someone who passed the Vermilion Bird Institute's volcano trial? Are you for real? So fast. The few people who were dozing off suddenly became alert. They raised their heads and looked at the excited girl with a round face. Mulan. Are you joking? Who's joking with you? It's true. The round-faced girl raised her head proudly. This batch of rookies is unimaginably strong. In a short 2 months, they broke through the 100,000 volcano trial, defeated 9 guardians in succession, and found the All-Stars Gate. You must know that this time, the guardian guarding the 9th palace of my Vermilion Bird trial is the famous Fire Lawn Star General Mo Jia. Lord Mo Jia is a Silver Star General of the Black Iron, Bronze, Silver, and Gold Star Generals. Among the Silver Star Generals of Xingqian School, his battle prowess is one of the best. His strength is enough to compare with a few important figures. To be able to pass his trial, this Vermilion Birdhead's performance is astonishing. The young girl's small mouth blabbered, throwing out heavy news in succession. That's right. Mo Jia's strength is indeed one of the best among all the Silver Star Generals. Unfortunately, that guy is also famous for being cold and ruthless with a heart of stone. To be able to pass through his trial so quickly, his talent is indeed extraordinary. Suddenly, a voice came from afar, carrying a faint gentleness and refinement. A beam of golden light appeared, and a powerhouse wearing a golden battle suit appeared on the square. He was so handsome that he didn't seem to be a creature of the mortal world. Taurus Star General Luo Xian, Lord Luo Xian. Their eyes were filled with awe and respect. Several people hurriedly lowered their heads. This was a genuine Gold Star General, an important figure from Xingqian School. At this moment, a group of handsome young men and women with different temperaments came from afar. The young man in the lead wore a feathered crown and wore a sun, moon, and stars robe. His sleeves fluttered, and his black hair danced behind his shoulders. He looked extremely confident. Senior Brother Zong. Everyone shouted in unison. Their eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. Why did these people come? Senior brothers and junior brothers, no need to bow. We're all family. Zong Wuxiang looked at Luo Xian with a smile and cupped his hands. Thank you, Luo Xian, Zong Wuxiang said. Senior brother Luo Xian, what a coincidence. I didn't expect to meet you here. What a coincidence. Junior brother Zong Wuxiang. Luo Xian glanced at the latter and lightly snorted. Of course it's a coincidence that you use the water mirror superpower to watch my cave every day. Zong Wuxiang didn't feel embarrassed at all. He walked a few steps forward and clung to Luo Xian's sleeves like a little girl. He shook Luo Xian's arm and said bitterly, Senior brother, isn't it because I admire your reputation too much? Senior brother is our role model. We also want to learn from you, to broaden our horizons. A trace of helplessness flashed in his eyes. Luo Xian swung his sleeve and pulled out an arm that was smeared with a layer of black oil from Zong Wuxiang's tugging. Luo Xian was well aware of this slippery junior brother's bad behavior. All right, you guys just want to watch the show? Do it yourselves. You can watch the show, but don't cause trouble. Senior brother, someone from Azure Dragon School, really made it to the 9th palace this year? Zong Wuxiang's eyes widened. Although he guessed that Luo Xian's appearance here might be because someone made it to the 9th palace, it wasn't as shocking as hearing it from Luo Xian's mouth. Not only Zong Wuxiang, but the other Xingqian School disciples also had a look of disbelief. Someone from Azure Dragon School actually made it to the 9th palace this early? Azure Dragon School also has a monstrous talent. Incredible. This time, Azure Dragon School is going to turn the tide. They are so *King lucky. Fortunately, they made a trip to the snow region. This time, they might catch a few big fish. If they catch a few monstrous talents and report back, the master and martial uncles might reward them greatly. I think it's more likely that we'll be very sad. Although we went to the Shuiyu region to select disciples, we only looked through the list in a hurry. If we miss out on a big fish, we'll probably be punished when we get back. I wonder if senior brother Luo Xian has sensed which young man broke into the ninth palace. Zhong Wuxiang asked as he recovered from the shock. Luo Xian closed his eyes slightly and said after a while, "There seems to be a lot of people." "What? A lot?" Zhong Wuxiang was dumbfounded. Did the Snow region trial produce many monstrous talents? In the next moment, Luo Xian said again, "However, there are only 2 people who are qualified to make it to the ninth palace." Chapter 136. Kacha! Kacha! Qin Feng wore a black robe. His head moved, and the bones in his body groaned. Walking forward, when he passed by Xiao Yuchan, Qin Feng stopped and looked at Xiao Yuchan, who was struggling to get up from the ground. Xiao Yuchan's recovery was very strong, and he could already stand up. "Qin Feng, don't be so proud. I think you won't be any better in a while." Azure Qi flickered in Xiao Yuchan's eyes. He looked up and saw the black-robed youth with a smile. His face was ashen. That might not be the case. Qin Feng sneered and turned his head to look at the Taurus Star General. The Taurus Star General was very strong, and Qin Feng could see that he did not use his full strength. Otherwise, Xiao Yuchan would not just be lying on the ground. Clearly, the Taurus Star General had suppressed most of the forces. At this time, he was only using strength equivalent to the peak of the 9th heavenly layer of the martial path. However, even if he was only using the peak of the 9th heavenly layer of the martial path, the Taurus Star General's vision was beyond the 9th heavenly layer of the martial path. Just this point alone was enough to suppress enemies of the same level. Even if a Meridian's condensation rail powerhouse came, they would not be his match. His gaze fell on the black-robed youth. Qin Feng felt an invisible pressure in his heart, as heavy as MT Tai. His entire body was seen through by this gaze. Withdrawing his gaze, the Taurus Star General stood up, holding the large golden sword as he spoke indifferently. "Little guy, you're only at the beginning of the 8th heavenly layer of the martial path. Retreat, you have no chance." Just now, that purple-robed little guy who comprehended the 10th heavenly layer of the martial path was not a match for my sword. "You have even less chance." "That might not be the case." With a smile on his face, Qin Feng approached step by step. His footwork was calm, and he pulled out the ancient sword inch by inch. "Since you don't want to give up, then let's fight." The Taurus Star General's tall and slender figure blocked the gate of myriad stars. His white hair fluttered, and his aura was so imposing that even 10,000 could not pass. "Then let's give it a try." Qin Feng's eyes revealed a trace of self-confidence. If the Taurus Star General controlled his strength to the pulse condensation period, then perhaps he really wouldn't be able to do anything. However, if he only controlled it at the peak of the 9th heavenly layer, he might still have a chance to win. One had to know that he was also an expert with a vision that surpassed the 9th heaven of martial arts. The Taurus Star will possess the vision of a powerhouse. Qin Feng also had it. The two of them already stood on the same level, but at this moment, the Taurus Star General did not know this. This meant that the Taurus Star General was already one step behind. Title Extinction, 3rd Sword. Qin Feng rubbed his body and advanced. His figure flitted, the cool breeze god refining steps practically fused into his instincts. The next instant, he appeared 20 paces away from the Taurus Star General. Like a tidal wave, the sword light blasted out. "Interesting. No wonder you are so confident. This sword alone is enough to defeat an ordinary expert of the 9th heaven of the martial path." A trace of surprise flashed in the Taurus Star General's eyes, but soon he laughed. "However, your sword might be enough to deal with an ordinary expert of the 9th heaven of the martial path, but in this general's eyes, there are too many flaws." 1,000 heavy slash. A golden light slashed out, and the heavy golden sword seemed to condense the power of 1,000 mountains. Bang! In an instant, Qin Feng's sword light was shattered by the sword. At the same time, the sword light locked onto Qin Feng's figure and slashed through the air. A heavy sword aura pressed down. Enveloped by the thousand heavy sword light, Qin Feng's entire body felt cold. It was as if countless flaws were exposed all over his body. Under the naked sword light, his figure seemed to be frozen by the sword aura, unable to move an inch. As expected, there is a way. Previously, Xiao Yuchan should have suffered a great loss under the strange sword aura. With a dignified gaze, Qin Feng's figure was like duckweed. Under the pressure of the heavy sword aura, the cool breeze god refining steps showed signs of merging with the spirit snake body. Streaks of heavy golden sword shadows slashed past, but Qin Feng was handling them with ease. Power of wind? The Taurus Star General understood. A trace of golden light circulated in his eyes. Triple sword slash. With another slash, the golden sword burst out with a layer of yellow light that swept over. An even heavier sword aura burst out and enveloped Qin Feng's entire body. Under the heavy sword aura, Qin Feng's movement speed became twice as slow. Qin Feng felt that it was difficult to continue. If he continued to use the cool breeze god refining steps, it was very likely that he would end up like Xiao Yuchan. Title Extinction, Fourth Sword. Almost without hesitation, a majestic innate sword chi burst out. Qin Feng raised the ancient sword high up with one hand. The soaring, invisible sword chi was attached to the ancient sword, and the ancient sword seemed to become a terrifying, huge sword that was dozens of feet long. The sword slashed through the air. Rumble. It was indescribably fast. Bang, bang, bang. The sword light fell from the sky. When it was about to slash the Taurus Star General, the Taurus Star General waved the huge sword in his hand and lifted it up smoothly. The sword light spread out like water ripples. The Taurus Star General was like a reef in the water, easily blocking the sword. Interesting. This sword is enough to kill some experts in the first secret realm of the Meridian's condensation period. However, if you want to pass this place, it's still not enough. The Taurus Star General laughed. Although he said that, his heart was still somewhat shaken. This year's Azure Dragon Academy's Snow Domain trial had indeed produced an extraordinary person. He could slash out such a terrifying sword at the 8th firmament of the martial path. To be able to reach the 9th palace was definitely not a fluke. This kind of performance should be able to rank in the top 100 this year. However, his expression quickly changed. He raised his head, and a sword light that swept through the sky suddenly burst out from afar. Rumble. The roar of the sea reverberated above his head, as if an endless tide had appeared. In the blink of an eye, the sword light was already above his head. Then what about this sword? Title Extinction, Fifth Sword. The sound was deafening, and the Taurus Star General's eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of loss of self-control. Oh no, I underestimated this kid. This sly little guy hid his strength. The first two swords were all stored up for this sword. Qin Feng's sword was already comparable to the power of the peak of the second secret realm of the Meridian's condensation period. The Taurus Star General's eyes flashed with a trace of not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He had actually been tricked by a little guy at the 8th firmament of the martial path. Rumble. The Taurus Star General raised his golden sword and blocked in front of his body. Bang! The extremely fast sword light bombarded like a tide, erupting with terrifying waves. The Taurus Star General's body was entangled. Good chance. After slashing out with his sword, Qin Feng resisted the weakness of his body. Seeing that the Taurus Star General was successfully entangled, his eyes flashed with a trace of joy. He didn't have time to absorb the energy of the void to recover. His figure flashed and appeared outside the Gate of Stars. The next moment, he rushed into the Gate of Stars like a phantom. Sly little guy. The Taurus Star General looked on helplessly as Qin Feng took the opportunity to successfully break through. His eyes flashed with a trace of helplessness and depression. If possible, he really wanted to keep Qin Feng here, but this way he would have to erupt with strength above the Meridian's condensation period. This way, it would break the rules of the trial and lose its meaning. The Taurus Star General could only look on helplessly as Qin Feng rushed into the Gate of Stars. Damn it! Xiao Yuchan also raised his head at this moment, just in time to see Qin Feng's black-robed figure entering the Gate of Stars. For a moment, his eyes were scarlet red, and his 5 fingers clenched in a fist that nearly pierced into his flesh. This is the last chapter of the 3rd volume. The 4th volume has begun. There will be an update tonight. Thank you for your votes, brothers. Chapter 137. Passing through the Gate of Stars gave Qin Feng a bad memory. It was as if he was sitting in a broken carriage on a mountain full of uneven stones. However, sitting in a carriage was painful for but while sitting in the Gate of Stars was painful for his head. Bang! Out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of a ray of light. At the same time, it was as if the broken carriage had stepped onto a cliff, and his body suddenly soared into the air. Qin Feng forcibly suppressed this strange feeling. Qin Feng controlled his body and landed lightly on the ground. The sunlight was different from the perennial gloomy weather in the snow region. A ray of warm sunlight fell on the black-robed youth, and it was warm and intoxicating. The cold air in the snow region seemed to have melted. Qin Feng couldn't help but squint his eyes and look up, greedily absorbing this trace of warmth. He had arrived at All Stars College. Even if he didn't look, Qin Feng could already feel dozens of slightly fiery gazes landing on him. There was a trace of disbelief in their eyes. Is this a student participating in the snow region trial? At this moment, a slightly excited voice sounded. This was a youth wearing a sun, moon, and stars robe. His eyebrows were slightly shaken, and Qin Feng could feel this youth's excitement from his fast heartbeat. Qin Feng looked up and nodded. Good, good. In his excitement, this All-Stars College senior in charge of registration repeatedly said good, and the smile on his face became even more amiable. Qinyu, what the hell are you doing? Why are you dilly-dallying? Hurry up and lead this junior over to register. Compared to this youth who seemed to be overly agitated, the other seniors of the Star Academy had already sobered up. Who is this black kid? Who is this person? Where's our Kong Jin, Peaksley Chiobai? In the distance, seeing Qin Feng rushing out of the Gate of Stars, Zhong Wuxiang asked the surrounding Xingchen school disciples. Everyone, oh, as if waking up from a dream. Chunyu hurriedly jogged over to guide Qin Feng to the shade of the tree. At this time, there was a row of registration areas under the shade of the tree. Junior, you're the first person to announce your participation in the Shuiyu competition. Please come and register. In the next moment, a youthful and beautiful senior sister walked over. She rolled her eyes at Chunyu, who was smiling awkwardly, and guided Qin Feng to the registration table. Junior brother, first of all, congratulations on passing the All-Stars College's examination. From now on, you are a true disciple of All-Stars College. No matter how long you stay in All-Stars College, the identity of a disciple of All-Stars College will accompany you for the rest of your life. It might even become the glory of your life. Of course, this may also be the place where your legendary journey begins. In any case, please sign your name here. This senior sister was very good at talking. When she spoke, she revealed a faint and sweet dimple, giving off a pure and sweet feeling. It felt like a spring breeze. I'm Qin Feng. Senior sister, please take care of me. Qin Feng felt that he had become much younger under this kind of smile. Unconsciously, his murderous aura dissipated a lot. My name is Bai Yun. Remember senior sister's name? The girl giggled, looking very lively. After a series of grades were completed, the girl, Bai Yun, sighed slightly and said, Junior Qin Feng, from today onwards, you are the head of our Azure Dragon Academy's new batch of freshmen. Under Qin Feng's intentional strategy, coupled with Bai Yun's intention to befriend Qin Feng, the hot new head of the academy, the atmosphere between the two became more and more harmonious. At this time, there was no longer any unfamiliarity between the two of them. Qin Feng intended to do so. As a newcomer, everything here was very unfamiliar. He had to have a comprehensive understanding of All Stars College as soon as possible so that he could make various plans to get more benefits here. Befriending his senior sister, who was very familiar with All Stars College and looked very pleasing to the eye, seemed like a pretty good idea. Junior Chin Feng, after the one from Vermilion Bird Academy, you are the second new powerhouse to pass the trial. This time, you have greatly helped our Azure Dragon Academy gain face. Azure Dragon, Vermilion Bird. Chin Feng's eyes flashed with a trace of doubt. Baiyin explained. All Stars College is divided into 4 academies according to different areas of enrollment. The Azure Dragon Academy of the East, Vermilion Bird Academy of the South, White Tiger Academy of the West, and Black Tortoise Academy of the North. These 4 academies have as many experts as there are clouds. Azure Dragon Academy's new batch of freshmen has almost several thousand people. A quarter of them were born from the rules of the trial, and the other 3/4 were born from donations. However, you, Junior Chin Feng, will be the head of these several thousand people. Baiyin spoke frankly with assurance. Donations? Chin Feng's eyes slightly moved. Chin Feng could hear the disdain in senior sister Baiyin's voice towards donations. Just some vermin who walked in through the back door. You don't need to pay attention to these guys. Most of them will be eliminated. Those who can walk to the end are all elite disciples like us. Hearing Baiyin's words, Chin Feng's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. From Baiyin's tone, it seemed that All Stars College had more than one way to recruit disciples. There was another way, which was known as donating students who walked in through the back door. Moreover, it seemed that these donating students didn't need to go through the trial. Chin Feng thought about it and found it to be true. The domain of stars was too big, and All Stars College was the stabilizing force of the domain of stars. Its fame was so great that even a small country like the Great Yin Empire was spreading it. Obviously, those who wanted to enter All Stars College would definitely break their heads. All Stars College, as a semi-public martial arts academy, naturally couldn't reject some outstanding talents, especially when countless princes, princesses, and aristocratic families were squeezing their way in. Even with All Stars College's current influence and status, they still had to consider it. However, you have to be careful. Occasionally, there will be dark horses among them that can threaten your seat of honor. The seat of honor isn't fixed? Chin Feng instantly reacted and realized that the seat he had just snatched was not stable. Junior brother Chin Feng, you're so greedy. The importance of the seat of honor for each grade is far beyond your imagination. Baiyin rolled her eyes at the black-robed youth in annoyance. Chin Feng's heart tightened. It seemed that he had underestimated the importance of the seat under his butt. Baiyin looked at Chin Feng enviously and said, Junior brother Chin Feng, actually, in the eyes of many people, the seat of honor for each grade is called a preparatory student of Xingchen School. The seat of honor for each grade is usually held by the strongest person in each grade, and also by the most outstanding person. The seat of honor for each grade enjoys the best treatment in All Stars College, the best cave dwelling with spiritual energy, the best medicinal cuisine, and the best cultivation environment. The most enviable thing is the seat of honor's authority. Usually, the academy will inform the seat of honor about the matters of each grade in advance, and then the seat of honor will announce it. The seat of honor also has the right to know and the right to choose. After the seat of honor for each grade makes his choice, the mission board will only appear on the mission board the next day. Do you know the importance of this? In All Stars College, where the elimination rate is so high that it's abnormal, it's life. Just based on this point, the benefits it contains are enough to make people go crazy. Not to mention, the seat of honor has all kinds of crazy discounts on the various commercial streets in the city of All Stars. Do you think that such a seat will allow you to sit still forever? The more Baiyin spoke, the more excited he became. In the end, he became dazed. Seat of honor. That was a title that contained great magical power in All Stars College. Being able to become the seat of honor of a grade would be the talk of a lifetime. As long as you walked out of All Stars College and told others that you were once the seat of honor of All Stars College, you would be able to enter any country and receive the treatment of a general or a duke. Even entering some of the continent's first-rate sects would be easy. Therefore, you have to be careful of the seat under your butt. From today onwards, there will be countless people who will do their best to compete with you. Every 3 months, All Stars College will have a comprehensive examination. If you can surpass all the other students, then you will still be the seat of honor. If you can't, then you can only be squeezed out by others and become the most ordinary member of the public again, starting the charge all over again. Generally speaking, the new seat of honor is the most dangerous and is the easiest to be squeezed out by others. You have to be careful. Chapter 138. Head actually has such great authority. Hearing Bai Yun's words, Qin Feng was shocked. All Stars College has 4 great academies, 4 great academies, 4 great academies, 4 great academies. This time, other than our Azure Dragon Academy, the Vermilion Bird Academy's head also came out. Bai Yun spoke frankly with assurance. The beauty's soft voice contained a charming smile. Qin Feng nodded. Qin Feng didn't pay too much attention to the heads of the academies, but it wasn't that he looked down on these geniuses in his heart. These people were able to stand out from countless competitors, which was enough to prove their excellence. Afterwards, Azure Dragon Academy's seniors came up to greet them one after another. Most of these seniors had good intentions. Their expressions were kind and friendly, without a trace of arrogance. At first, Qin Feng thought that these people were all friendly, but soon Qin Feng knew that he was wrong again. Among them, there were new students who came to report while dragging their luggage. Among the new students, there was no lack of nobles from various countries' imperial palaces. However, these seniors didn't even bother to pay attention to these new students. Those with good attitudes were sent away with a few cold words. This kind of huge difference between before and after made Qin Feng have a deeper understanding of the head's position. During this time, there were seniors who came up to chat. Qin Feng didn't pretend to be cold and arrogant, taking advantage of this time to gradually gain a deeper understanding of All Stars College. In the middle, Qin Feng saw the Vermilion Bird Academy's head. This was a young girl. The young girl's appearance was absolutely beautiful. Her jet black hair scattered behind her waist, she wore a red dress, and her temperament was unattainable. What was unforgettable was the phoenix mark between her eyebrows. When she saw Qin Feng, she merely glanced at him as if he was a passerby. A proud phoenix. Qin Feng evaluated in his heart. Her name was as unforgettable as her temperament. Ji Huang. Compared to Qin Feng, the Azure Dragon Academy's head, this Vermilion Bird Academy's head had gathered too much dazzling light. Qin Feng, the Azure Dragon Academy's head, was overshadowed by her radiance. Many seniors came up with fiery eyes, but they were all deflated. 5 days later, the Azure Dragon Academy's second place was decided. Bang! A purple-clothed young man with messy hair and ragged clothes fell out of the Gate of Stars and landed on the ground with a loud thud. Obviously, he was extremely weak. Seeing this, Qin Feng almost laughed out loud. The one who fell down was none other than young Master Xiao Yuchan, who is usually elegant and graceful. Xiao Yuchan's expression was ugly as he forced himself to raise his head. The first thing he saw was Qin Feng. He was so angry that his face contorted. His handsome face was so gloomy that it looked like water was about to drip from it. Qin Feng. Xiao Yuchan almost used his teeth to spit out these 2 words. Xiao Yuchan's luck was not good, because Qin Feng had tricked the Taurus Star General once. The Taurus Star General vented all of his gloominess on Xiao Yuchan, Lu Qinyang, and the others who had come after him. These few days, Xiao Yuchan was ravaged. Being able to pass through the Gate of Stars could be said to be extremely difficult. How could Xiao Yuchan not hate Qin Feng to the core? It was filled with killing intent. Xiao Yuchan had long viewed the seat of honor as his exclusive property. Junior, you're the second student to pass the Snow Region trial. Please come over here to register. All Stars College's disciples saw this scene and quickly led Xiao Yuchan to the registration counter. Xiao Yuchan stood up. When he passed by Qin Feng, he stared coldly at Qin Feng. Troublesome fellow. Qin Feng thought to himself. Troublesome. If there was anyone who could threaten his seat of honor 3 months later, Xiao Yuchan was without a doubt one of them. As the trial time passed, the trial gradually entered its climax. Students began to pass the trial one after another. The square became more and more lively. There were more and more seniors who came to watch the show. There were also some recruitment spots for hunting teams and mission societies. The Field of Stars was adjacent to the Wildlands region. As everyone knew, the Wildlands region was the nation of ferocious beasts and savage beasts. It was filled with primitive and desolation. Some people said that there were countless spiritual herbs and ancient beasts. Some people said that there were countless fatal dangers that could kill big shots. Legend had it that in the depths of the Wildlands region, there were terrifying beast kings and even beast gods. There were many ancient savage beast clans, and it was very terrifying. Regardless of which guess it was, there was a common opinion that there was an unknown place in the Wildlands region that was worth exploring. All Stars College stood at the forefront of opening up the Wildlands region. There was almost an endless stream of missions. These missions were the main channels for All Stars College students to earn points. Although most of the missions were safe, there were often unexpected situations that could easily lead to death. Every year, many All Stars College students lost their lives in order to complete the missions. These societies were formed by seniors to complete various dangerous missions or reward missions. Qin Feng had received a few valuable invitations over the past few days. There were Taichu Battle Team, Moonlight Battle Team, Silver Feather Society, Sky Sea Pavilion, 5 Elements Battle Team, White Sun Battle Team, Blue Water Battle Team, Color Glass Society, and so on. Senior Baiyun also sent an invitation to join the team. Senior Baiyun belonged to a relatively powerful society called Sky Sea Pavilion. According to her, the Sky Sea Pavilion was one of the top 10 strongest teams in All Stars College. According to Qin Feng's understanding, the Sky Sea Pavilion was a tyrannical female-dominated team. It was the gathering place of the previous monstrous senior sisters. Under normal circumstances, they would only invite some extremely talented women. Only a few very outstanding men would receive an invitation. However, according to Qin Feng's observation, the Sky Sea Pavilion's main target this time was Ji Huang. People passed the Snow Domain trial test one after another. To Qin Feng's surprise, the third person to pass the Snow Domain trial test was not Lu Qinyang, Yuan Daojin, Du Pingxia, Li Qiubai, or Lu Chunyang. It was a gray-clothed youth at the initial stage of Level 9 of the Martial Path. Qian Kai, the gray-clothed youth that Qin Feng had failed to kill several times. Qian Kai, dressed in gray, fell from the Gate of Stars. His face was expressionless. Only when he raised his head and looked at Qin Feng did he show a trace of emotion. Then he lowered his head and walked over as if nothing had happened. Narrowing his eyes, Qin Feng stared at Qian Kai and thought to himself, "This is strange. This kid named Qian Kai was frozen by my ocean control. Logically speaking, he should have been immobilized for at least 2 or 3 days. Even if he didn't freeze to death, his vitality should have been greatly damaged. However, not only did he not weaken, but he also advanced from the late stage of Level 8 of the Martial Path to the initial stage of Level 9 of the Martial Path. Also, why does he have a very familiar smell on him? Like someone I know?" Various thoughts flashed through Qin Feng's mind. His gaze followed Qian Kai's figure as he stared fixedly at the former. Qian Kai felt extremely awkward. Qin Feng's gaze made him feel extremely uncomfortable. It was as if a sharp sword was nailed to his back. The short registration time made Qian Kai's intuition very uncomfortable. This damn Qin Feng, why is it him again? Did he find out something? Qian Kai thought to himself. His eyes flashed, and his face was gloomy with resentment. Chapter 139. Vaguely, there was a hint of danger coming from the gray-clothed youth. This was very unusual. With Qin Feng's current strength, he could easily kill a martial artist at the initial stage of the 9th heaven of the Martial Path. This Qian Kai is definitely strange. Qin Feng stared straight at the gray-clothed youth. If it weren't for the All Stars College's rule that no fighting was allowed on campus, Qin Feng would definitely have made a move. This was a scourge. With a gloomy face, Qian Kai's figure flashed and appeared in an empty corner of the square. "Qin Feng, You definitely didn't expect that not only did I not die, but I also obtained a heaven-defying fortuitous encounter. My cultivation has improved greatly. All the humiliation you have given me, I will repay you one by one." At this time, a mysterious old voice sounded in Qian Kai's mind. "Qian Kai boy, don't worry. This venerable is a big shot from 10,000 years ago. This venerable has a tyrannical true inheritance that you can't imagine. In my hands, there are many traces of orthodoxies and inheritances left by experts from 10,000 years ago. As long as you take one step at a time, you will eventually be able to obtain these things. With this venerable's help, sooner or later, you will soar into the sky and shine brilliantly, becoming an expert in the eyes of everyone. As for that black-clothed boy, you don't have to worry. He is just a clown. Next, this venerable will impart to you a top-secret cultivation method that will help you improve greatly in a short period of time. Then, you will be able to suppress Qin Feng and seize his first seat position." Qian Kai's eyebrows flashed with joy as he said respectfully, "Thank you, venerable elder." Before Qian Kai left, he glanced coldly at Qin Feng, who was looking at him. His eyes flashed with extreme ruthlessness. "Qin Feng, I will let you be proud for 3 months." It seems that someone is talking to Qian Kai. This Qian Kai's expression changed drastically. First, it was fear, then it was a show of strength. Now it is complacent. It seems that someone gave him confidence. Obviously, something is wrong. Stroking his smooth chin, Qin Feng took in the inexplicable changes in Qian Kai's expression before and after. Qian Kai should be a newcomer. No one around him should care about such a small character. Could it be that there's a 1,000-year-old or 10,000-year-old ghost in his body? Qin Feng knew that after some powerful martial artists died, because their essence qi didn't disperse, there would be remnant souls left behind to stir up trouble. However, most remnant souls were unable to exist on their own unless they relied on some special treasure to attach themselves to it and survive. Or perhaps it had found a host and lodged itself in the depths of another person's soul, waiting for an opportunity to cause trouble and seek an opportunity for resurrection. Qin Feng had encountered such a situation in his previous life. That was a powerful enemy. At first, Qin Feng didn't know the reason behind it, and suffered losses time and time again. It wasn't until later that he saw through the secret of the remnant soul in that person's body that he found a weakness and suppressed that person in one fell swoop. Qin Feng stared coldly at Qian Kai, ready to find an opportunity to test him. Qin Feng had plenty of means to deal with this kind of old antique who still wanted to make trouble after death. Half a month later, Lu Kenyang was the fourth to pass through the Gate of Stars. On the square, Lu Kenyang's expression was very interesting when he found out that he was the fourth person to pass the Gate of Stars. This proud young marquis, who had always regarded the top 3 as something in his bag, almost exploded on the spot. As for the Snow Domain trial, Qin Feng didn't pay too much attention to it. Instead, he took the opportunity to understand the entire capital of stars. The capital of stars' prosperity was somewhat beyond imagination. All Stars College was located in the center of this megacity. The 4 great colleges occupied the best golden location. The students lived in a place called the Student City. There were several large commercial streets around it, with all kinds of luxury goods. There were various large unions located around. Qin Feng saw the Alchemist Union, Craftsman Union, Inscription Union, and even the Mystic Master Union that was under construction. There was a sea of people here, and carriages were as common as clouds. Many alchemists wearing alchemist robes were hurrying back and forth. On the other streets, Qin Feng saw many famous auctions forming a commercial street. There were all kinds of spiritual items, secret manuals, young spirit beasts, and even foreign race slaves. On the other side of the street, there were all kinds of craftsman workshops. Entering this street, even the temperature rose a bit. Ding, ding, dang, dang. Sword energy soared into the sky. Treasured swords that flickered with cold light made people envious. The people here were basically martial artists. There were many people in charge of large families who were dressed gorgeously, customizing batch after batch of weapons. This was the East Market, and the quality here was very high. On the other streets, Qin Feng saw the even more bustling West Market. There was an endless stream of horses and carriages. Countless wealthy merchants and caravans came and went like clouds. Camel caravans and horse caravans came and went, transporting goods. Goods were everywhere. The sounds of hawking, shouting, bargaining, and clamoring were very loud. The daily turnover here was comparable to the national treasury of some empires. This was the West Market, where people from all walks of life gathered. As for the South City, it was the residential area of the big shots. There were many mansions here. Servants came and went, and carriages were rumbling. There was an endless stream of dignitaries. Ordinary wealthy merchants couldn't even buy a toilet here. During this month, apart from cultivating, Qin Feng was shuttling around the capital of stars to familiarize himself with the environment here. Other than that, he was preparing to buy a house and settle down a few subordinates. Qin Feng had already received news in advance that his little maidservant Red Lotus was about to arrive with the Mystic Association's people. I wonder if that little girl, Red Lotus, will be used to it. On the bed, thinking of Red Lotus, Qin Feng's mouth revealed a trace of a smile. Qin Feng had already inquired clearly. There were many ordinary affiliated academies in the satellite towns on the outskirts of the capital of stars, which were very suitable for beginners' initiation. Once little maid Red Lotus arrived at the capital of stars, Qin Feng would arrange for her to undergo martial arts initiation. The little lass was the Heaven Fiend Blood Maiden, and her body contained an immeasurable amount of blood fiend qi. Her aptitude far surpassed any divine body. Once she underwent martial Tao initiation, she would definitely soar to the sky. A month passed quickly. Qin Feng's Xiantian primordial chaos true qi advanced by one stage and reached the mid-stage of the 8th firmament of the martial Tao. On this day, Qin Feng, who was cultivating, heard a knock on the door. Junior Qin Feng, the teachers of All Stars College are back. Please come over. Senior Sister Baiyun's soft and sweet voice came from outside the door. But the trial is over. Qin Feng opened the door and smiled. Junior brother, you're so carefree. You've been cultivating for more than a month. I see that your cultivation has improved again. The young girl was wearing a white dress and looked like a real white cloud. She rolled her eyes at the black-robed youth and sized up Qin Feng with a trace of envy and depression in her beautiful eyes. Senior sister, you're in trouble. You spent 3 months there. Senior sister, you're too modest. That's a job that many people are envious of. I saw many people's eyes turn red with greed when they saw the reward of 10 contribution points. Qin Feng smiled. After a period of understanding, Qin Feng had a deeper understanding of the contribution point system of All Stars College. At the same time, he was more aware of the value of these 10 contribution points. Don't be so talkative. They're probably all waiting for you, the head of the school. You still have to choose your cave abode later. Senior sister hasn't congratulated you yet. The experts of the school spent a lot of effort to snatch a few spiritual mountains and blessed land from the Beast Kings. Many people are eagerly waiting for the distribution. Junior brother, you might be able to choose a good spiritual mountain and blessed land as your cave abode. Spiritual mountains and blessed lands. Even some of the inner disciples of Xingqian School don't have such treatment. Senior sister is so envious that her eyes have turned red. Thank you, brothers, for your votes. It will explode within a week. Once it explodes, it will be guaranteed to be at least 4 updates in the future. There won't be 2 updates anymore. This can be guaranteed. As for the 2 updates these few days, please be considerate. Chapter 140. It's so lively here. When they arrived at the Myriad Stars Plaza, there was already a sea of people. Naturally, it's the most lively time of the year. Senior Baiyun smiled and opened the way in front. A path opened up from crowd. Countless gazes fell on Qin Feng the moment he entered the plaza. Qin Feng's footwork was neither fast nor slow as he walked forward. His footwork did not change because of the gazes gathered on him. So this is our Azure Dragon College's first seat. He doesn't look like much. Middle stage, 8th heavenly layer of the martial path doesn't have 3 heads and 6 arms. It seems that this year's Azure Dragon College's trial is not up to standard. If I had known earlier, I would have also signed up for the Snow Domain trial. Our Azure Dragon College's first seat is actually a mid-stage, 8th heavenly layer of the martial path. What a disgrace. He probably got lucky. Middle stage, 8th heavenly layer of the martial path. I can crush him with one finger. At this time, it had already been 1 or 2 days since the end of the 4 colleges trial. All-Stars College was very lively, especially since today was the All-Stars College's freshman welcoming ceremony. On both sides of the road were this year's All-Stars College's freshmen. Most of the students were dressed gorgeously. They were either rich or noble. Young Prince, it seems that this year's first seat is yours. On the side of the road, a fat youth dressed in embroidered clothes complimented a handsome youth dressed in an embroidered robe. On the side, another young man in green who looked strong and powerful chuckled and said, "That goes without saying. Our prince is a martial artist at the early stage of the 9th heavenly layer. He also cultivates the secret technique of the guardian martial king, the mysterious dragon snake art. He is the #1 genius of our Cloudwater Empire." This time, if our prince hadn't encountered Venerable Yushan, the first seat would have been in our prince's pocket. The strong youth dressed in green looked at the black-robed youth in front of him with a trace of undisguised disdain. He deliberately raised his voice and said, "If some people have self-awareness, they should resign from the position of first seat and abdicate. Don't cling on to your position. In the end, all your efforts will be for naught, and you will be a laughingstock. It doesn't matter. At the very least, the seat of the head seat will remain with him for 3 months. After 3 months, we'll just take it back." The young prince chuckled, his expression indifferent. He was about 14 or 15 years old and was in the prime of his life. He had a broad chest, a narrow waist, and long legs. His skin was bronze, and he had a very masculine charm. His gaze was like that of a wolf's, filled with a strong sense of aggression. Most of the people around him looked at the young prince with respect. Even many disciples from aristocratic families treated him kindly. They vaguely saw him as their leader, as if he was the Azure Dragon's chief. This young prince's background was not simple at all. He was one of the strongest people in this year's batch aside from the non-trial disciples. Qin Feng furrowed his brows as he walked. Along the way, he received a lot of malicious gazes. Many youngsters were pointing and gossiping. These people's gazes were high and mighty, carrying a sense of superiority, making others feel extremely disgusted. Suddenly, he heard such a provocative voice. Stopping his footsteps, Qin Feng instantly looked over. His gaze landed on that provocative voice. Suddenly, a terrifying killing intent erupted from his eyes. Qin Feng didn't know how many people had died in his hands in both his previous and current lives. However, the moment this killing intent exploded, it was like a bolt of lightning. Qin Feng's gaze swept over. The young man in green who was looking at Qin Feng suddenly felt as if he had fallen into a bloody abyss. Suddenly, he felt as if he had fallen into a terrifying hell filled with blood and flesh. Countless vengeful souls and white bones swarmed over. Mountains of corpses and seas of blood, rivers of blood flowing. Ah! The young man in green who was about to mock Lin Fan suddenly turned pale. He couldn't help but let out a sharp scream of fear. This killing intent only flashed by. Qin Feng's gaze swept over and restrained the terrifying killing intent in his eyes. However, at this moment, most of the people on both sides shut their mouths. Poochie! There was a slight sound. At the same time, a strange smell came from the young man in green. Many people looked over and couldn't help but cover their noses and retreat. They saw that the young man in green had a large wet patch on his crotch. He was so scared that he pissed his pants. Looking at the embarrassed young man in green, anger flashed across the young man's face. The young prince's gaze was as cold as a sword as he glared at the young man in black. He almost spat out 2 words from between his teeth. Qin Feng. Qin Feng estimated that the young man in green would be in a nightmare for at least a few years. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to recover. As for the young prince's killing intent, Qin Feng didn't care at all. This kind of trash, if they were in another place, he would be able to kill him with one slap. In the square, many people's gazes landed on Qin Feng. Most of them had an unfriendly attitude towards Qin Feng. Looks like there's going to be fun to watch in the future. Qin Feng inwardly shook his head as he felt the judgmental and hostile gazes on him. Qin Feng had a feeling that there were competitors all over the mountains and plains. Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a trace of helplessness as he thought to himself, "Looks like after becoming a head, not only do you get benefits, but you also have to face countless open and covert attacks." Bai Yun's gaze swept over Qin Feng. There was a trace of impatience in his eyes as he smiled. "Junior, you don't have to worry about it. They're just venting their jealousy. After all, before entering the Starry Academy, they were all geniuses who came from all over the place. Their hearts were full of arrogance, and they were treated with respect. Suddenly, a first seat appeared above their heads. Naturally, they would not accept it. This is a small problem that all heads have to face. It's also a small test given to you by the Academy. However, you don't have to worry too much. All Stars College is a place that specializes in dealing with all kinds of dissatisfaction. A genius is nothing here. Here, the head is the most important. Soon, most of them won't have the time to find trouble with you." Bai Yin chuckled. Her laughter was a little cold. After 100 steps, Qin Feng arrived at the square. At this time, All Stars College's experts were talking. Qin Feng didn't listen carefully. His gaze swept across the crowd, and Qin Feng saw several familiar figures. Du Pingxia and Lu Chunyang were in the middle of the crowd. Clearly, there were a lot of people who supported them. Brother Qin Feng. At this time, Lu Chunyang also looked over. Beside him, Du Pingxia smiled reluctantly. His mood was a little down. Du Pingxia was ranked 6th in the trial this time. Lu Chunyang was ranked 8th. A few days before the trial ended, the two of them had just broken through the 9th palace. The 5th and 7th places were taken by Yuan Daojin and Li Qiubai respectively. The 9th and 10th places were taken by Wang Xiaosheng and Lu Han. For Du Pingxia, the result of 6th place was obviously much lower than the result she had hoped for. Not far away, Qin Feng saw several other familiar faces. Yu Hong, Yu Yao, Zhou Yuxian, Yin Lihua, Li Zhuang, Guan Ruolin, Qin Tianjiao, and Xue Fei. According to Qin Feng's knowledge, there were only 12 people who passed the trial this time. These people didn't pass the ranking trial. They passed the trial with 0 points. Envious gazes were looking at Qin Feng, but there was a sense of distance between them. In the future, they would be part of the contract workers' army. At this time, Qin Feng had already pulled away from them. Chapter 141. According to Qin Feng's knowledge, cultivators who didn't pass the Shuiyu trial would face the same situation as those who donated their lives. They needed to complete an errand job to accumulate points. There were many courses offered by the All-Star Academy, and if one wanted to study them, contribution points would be required. Not to mention the many courses required. There was also the cost of food and lodging. According to Qin Feng's knowledge, All Stars College didn't provide free food and lodging. The cost of food and lodging was about 5 points per year. No credit or delinquency. There were also many other expenses. For example, if one wanted better food and lodging to buy manuals and elixirs, they had to pay out of their own pockets and take out points. These gold and silver items were useless. However, All Stars College had a contribution hall. One could use the contribution hall to pawn elixirs, martial arts manuals, elixirs, and divine weapons to exchange for contribution points. Very few people were willing to do so. Most people would only use contribution points to exchange for elixirs, martial arts manuals, and manuals. And very few people were willing to do the opposite. They would use their family's secret techniques to exchange for contribution points. 5 points wasn't much in the eyes of many senior All-Stars College students. But in the eyes of the new students, especially the penniless workers, it was an astronomical figure. Therefore, one had to quickly choose an errand job in the errand job yard. All Stars College had many businesses. It wasn't as simple as just a super college. All Stars College had many businesses. For example, 100,000 Her Garden, Her Mountain, Ling Show Loft, Tuat Yard, Mystic Woman Hall, Craftsman Street, etc. Most students would choose to enter these places to earn points. For example, as an errand boy in Herb Mountain, as long as he completed a specific task, he would receive 10 points every month. If he picked great herbs, he would even receive additional points as a reward. If he picked high-level elixirs, he might be able to enter the eyes of some important people in Herb Mountain and be accepted as a disciple. This was an errand job, but also a form of cultivation. Entering Herb Mountain and becoming an errand boy didn't mean that he would be a lowly worker and unable to cultivate. On the contrary, Herb Mountain also had its own cultivation methods. Qin Feng had a good understanding of these places. For example, the herb garden. The herb garden was a place to cultivate spirit herbs. Once one entered the herb garden, the first thing one had to do was to cultivate lesser art of clouds and rain. The little art of cloud and rain was a water-attributed spirit martial realm technique. Some spiritual medicines could not be watered by normal rainwater. They had to be nourished by the water-attributed primary qi of the little art of cloud and rain. There was also the gung metal killing art. The gung gold killing technique was also an advanced stage spiritual martial force technique. The medicine boy in the herb garden must train this technique to the 9th stage. Many spirit herbs were easy to attract strange insects to gnaw on, requiring the gung metal destruction art to exterminate them. If these two secret techniques could be deshang, their power would be extremely terrifying. It was rumored that there were advanced cultivation methods for these two techniques in Her Mountain. It led directly to the door of true inheritance. High-level medicine apprentices were very popular. Qin Feng had asked around and found out that he could earn hundreds of points in a month. The other places all had their own ways of doing things. It wasn't just about being a servant. From the moment they entered this place, cultivation had already begun. Any Deshang who practiced any of these secret techniques would be able to obtain unexpected benefits. Therefore, in his heart, even though he had already become the first seat of the All-Stars College, Qin Feng did not underestimate any disciple of the All-Stars College. As the first seat, he did not need to do any servant. However, Qin Feng knew that he had to choose a place to go. However, the difference between him and the other students was that the other students were going to be servants and would start from the bottom. Qin Feng and the other first seats would start from the middle and would become intersect disciples as soon as they entered. Big Brother Qin, when he passed by Li Zhuang, this young man looked at the black-robed young man with excitement. Yu Yao also walked up with a complicated expression. She had never thought that Qin Feng would become the first seat of the Azure Dragon this year. And she, like all the other donated students, would enter the contract labor mode. In the next year, or even a few years, she would not be able to escape from this awkward situation. On one hand, she had to work hard to accumulate contribution points, and on the other, she had to complete the assessment given by the students. A day ago, Yao had already chosen a place in the chores yard. There weren't many places that the girls could choose from. A few days ago, Yu Yao went to look for Qin Feng and told him that they had chosen to join the Xiannu Hall. The Xian NYU Hall was responsible for needlework. The clothes embroidered here were not ordinary clothes, but some precious spiritual clothes. Young girls who were not good at needlework would not be able to enter. This was the best choice for a girl who had just entered All-Stars College. According to what Qin Feng knew, the secret techniques that could be learned after entering the Xian NYU Hall included the 13 fairy needles, the 10,000 Blossoms divine sword technique, and other secret techniques. Li Zhuang joined to the rules. Li Zhuang, who had no background, and no filial piety, was not allowed to enter such a place. Li Zhuang's place was personally arranged by Qin Feng. As the head of the hall, the seniors in charge of the chores yard gave him face and allowed Li Zhuang to enter without a hitch. Yu Hong and Zhou Yuxian were lucky enough to enter the herb mountain and became the apprentices picking spiritual herbs. As for Qin Tianjiao and Xue Fei, they had some disagreements with Qin Feng. Qin Feng had been keeping an eye on them these past few days. Using the connections that he had built among the seniors, Qin Feng specifically asked the seniors to take good care of the two. Thus, Qin Tianjiao and Xue Fei had no place to go. At this time, the two of them did not look good. Obviously, they knew that they were in a precarious situation. They looked at Qin Feng with confused eyes, not as tough as before. Du Pingxia had also chosen place to go. As the sixth-ranked elite disciple of this year's Shuiyu trial, Du Pingxia was free to choose where to go. Du Pingxia chose to go to the Herb Mountain. However, unlike the others, Du Pingxia entered the Herb Mountain with the identity of an ordinary disciple, not an errand boy. As a disciple of the Herb Mountain, Du Pingxia's benefits and treatment were naturally not something an ordinary apprentice could compare to. This was the privilege of officially passing the Shuiyu trial and becoming an elite disciple. Lu Chunyang went to the Craftsman God Valley. His body was covered in the sunfire, so it would be more useful there. Lu Chunyang was ranked 8th in this year's Shuiyu trial and was also an elite disciple who passed the Shuiyu trial. Naturally, he would also receive the same treatment as a Craftsman God Valley disciple, not needing to be an apprentice. The welcoming ceremony seemed to drag on for a long time as the experts of the All-Stars College spoke passionately. For great institutes, for heads. Azure Dragon Institute's head of Qin Feng, Vermilion Bird Institute's head of Ji Huang, Black Tortoise Institute's head of Zhao Xikong, and White Tiger Institute's head of Yang Cheng. The four of them stood at the front. Countless gazes gathered on the four of them. Standing on the stage, Qin Feng looked at the envious, jealous, and hateful gazes from the corner of his eyes. Zhao Xikong and Yang Cheng seemed to have some expressions on their faces. Vermilion Bird Academy's first seat, Ji Huang, seemed like she was about to explode. Qin Feng wanted to laugh. The four heads were standing together, and the majority of them seemed to have come for this absolutely beautiful girl who was as beautiful as a fairy. Her figure was tall and slender, and she wore a red dress. Her beauty was peerlessly beautiful, and she had the noble temperament of a proud phoenix. For many years, rather than saying that he admired her, it would be better to say that he aimed his lustful gaze at this young lady who was like a fire phoenix. How could the girl not be angry? The young girl's full chest heaved up and down as she tried her best to suppress her volcano-like anger. As if she had noticed the smile on the corner of Qin Feng's mouth, Ji Huanger's beautiful eyes fiercely glared at Qin Feng. Chapter 142. Qin Feng was expressionless when such a beautiful woman with a fiery figure was secretly giving him flirtatious glances. Qin Feng and Ji Huang were standing very close. He could faintly smell the strange fragrance on the girl's body, as well as that soul-stirring and bone-eroding charm. She was naturally charming, a natural beauty. The four of you, follow me. After the freshman welcoming ceremony ended, it was finally their turn to receive the benefits of the head seat. The four of them were brought to the foot of a mountain. From afar, they saw an ancient and majestic hall. Spirit Mountain Hall. Spirit Mountain Hall. This was the place where All-Stars College's many spirit mountains, blessed lands, and caves were chosen. On the steps, most of the people coming and going were Meridian's realm powerhouses. Some had a murderous aura. Some were expressionless. Some had enchanting expressions. Some had indifferent expressions. There were many powerhouses riding strange beasts such as Bian Ho, Shun Ho, Pai Xiu, Shening, and so on. This is the new head seat. Looking at the four youths, a powerhouse asked. This was a burly man riding a winged white tiger. He descended from the sky with a terrifying aura. Raising his head, he glanced at the burly man on the winged tiger. The middle-aged man leading the way nodded. So, it's junior brother Lu Yin. Not bad little guys. The burly man riding the winged tiger glanced at them with a smile in his eyes. A beautiful and enchanting female powerhouse passed by. Hearing this, she shook her head and sneered, temporarily holding the title of head seat. Once the 3 months are up, they may not be able to sit still. In the previous years, Most of the new heads were driven out by the latecomers and fell into the dust. The burly man riding the winged tiger shook his head and smiled. 3 months is too short. It's not enough to pull away. However, if you can hold on to this head seat, you may be able to pull away. The indifferent middle-aged man glanced at the 4 people whose expressions changed slightly and shook his head lightly. He smiled at the others. You guys must have gained something from this trip. Are you preparing to exchange points to reset your Spirit Mountain cave? That's right, we did gain something. That's why we came here. We want to buy a new cave residence. I heard that the Academy seized a few high-grade Spirit Mountains and blessed lands from the Beast King some time ago. We want to ask Senior Brother Zhu Jian to help us reserve a few spots. As for the points needed to purchase the cave residence, we have already prepared them. You guys go in. Senior Marshal Brother Zhu is inside. The burly man's silhouette flashed as he landed on the ground. The winged white tiger was filled with spirituality. Its dignified eyes swept over Qin Feng and the other 3 before it laid on the ground lazily. This was a grade 1 savage beast with a pure bloodline. It was a royal member of the tiger tribe and possessed the bloodline of the white tiger, one of the 4 spirit divine beasts. Its battle prowess was astonishing, but at this moment, it looked extremely docile. These little guys have great potential. If you have time, you can come to the Taichu squad and find me. Luyan glanced at them and disappeared into the main hall of Spirited Mountain in a flash. The female expert sneered and glanced at them with a hint of disdain. She then followed Lu Yin into the main hall of Spirited Mountain. Who are they? Ji Huanger asked coldly. The indifferent middle-aged man glanced at the latter. No one knew what he was thinking, but a rare smile appeared on his face. They are your seniors. They are also students of All Stars College. After a few hundred steps, they walked up the white stone stairs to the main hall of Spirited Mountain. Wait a moment. The middle-aged man glanced at them and hurried into the back hall. Not long after, a somewhat impatient middle-aged man in green walked out. Looking at the cold gazes of the 4 people, the middle-aged man in green frowned and said coldly, "There are not many cave residences in the sect. You guys can choose for yourselves." The middle-aged man in green seemed to be full of complaints and seemed to be very dissatisfied. Qin Feng and the others were baffled. The 4 of them did not offend this middle-aged man in green. Qin Feng and the other 3 did not know that, generally, the blessed lands of Spirited Mountain that were obtained by All Stars College were usually placed in the main hall of Spirited Mountain. They would be rented or sold by the students of the college in the form of points. Every time they rented or sold, the middle-aged man in green and the other disciples who were in charge of the operation would be able to get a large share. Qin Feng and the other 3 were trying to gain something without risking anything. Not only did the middle-aged man in green not get a share of the points, but he also had to take out the best blessed land of Spirited Mountain. Therefore, he was very unhappy. However, this was the rule of All Stars College. Although the middle-aged man in green and the other senior brothers were unhappy, they could only pinch their noses and accept it. The middle-aged man in green waved his hand, and a virtual map of mountains and rivers appeared in the air. This was a treasure map. A faint fluorescent light floated. In this virtual map, the mountains and rivers were marked very clearly. The red represented ownerless, blessed lands. The blessed lands of Spirited Mountain had already been hidden and removed from the selection. On the map, the red dots lingered, dazzling the eyes. Hurry up, don't waste my time. The man in green looked at the 4 people and coldly shouted. As a participant who passed All Stars College's trial, Ji Huanger was the first to step forward and take a look at the map. First of all, the range is reduced. Remove all non-fire attribute blessed lands. The middle-aged man in green glanced at Ji Huanger and made a hand seal. Immediately, many of the red lights disappeared, revealing a few fire attribute blessed lands. I choose here. Ji Huanger's beautiful eyes moved and fell on one of the places on the map. Golden Parasol Mountain, Xixia Cave. Qin Feng's gaze fell on this place. In Qin Feng's mind, The information of Golden Parasol Mountain and Xixia Cave flashed through. Golden Parasol Mountain was located in the periphery of the capital of All Stars, in the area occupied by All Stars College. On the mountain, there was a golden parasol tree, and the underground fire was abundant. It was one of the few 6th-level spirited mountains in the fire attribute blessed lands. Golden Parasol Mountain was the territory of the alchemy department. Ji Huang'er choosing here was equivalent to announcing that she would directly enter All Stars College's alchemy department and become a disciple of the alchemy department. After making her choice, Ji Huang'er took out a Myriad Stars token and casually pressed it on the map. Suddenly, a fiery red golden seal flew out and turned into a red light that merged into the Myriad Stars token. This was the golden seal that controlled the cave. From now on, Ji Huang'er was the cave master of Xixia Cave in Golden Parasol Mountain. Ta-ta-ta. A series of footsteps went away. After Ji Huang'er made her choice, she did not even look at the three of them. She was already in a bad mood and directly left. Qin Feng glanced around and saw that Zhao Xikong, the head of the Tortoise Academy, was staring at Ji Huang'er's back. Obviously, he had some feelings for Ji Huang'er. Okay, the second one. The voice became colder and colder. The faces of the middle-aged man in green were gloomy. If a cave on a 6th-level spirited mountain was sold, even if it was only for a year of residence, it would be a lot of points. Now, it was taken away for free. What a strong resentment. Facing the eyes of the middle-aged man in green, who was about to explode, Qin Feng walked to the front of the mountain and river map with a stiff face. With just a glance, Qin Feng was almost dazzled by the selection. In that map of mountains and rivers, there were spiritual mountains and blessed lands of all sizes. The mountains and rivers were beautiful. If one was not mentally prepared, it would be very difficult to choose. What cave should I choose? He thought in his heart. After thinking for a moment, Qin Feng raised his head and his gaze fell on the mountain and river map. The range is shortened. Remove all the options of the blessed lands of non-wood, water, and wind attributes. Chapter 143. Qin Feng had a water attribute physique. If he were to cultivate in a water attribute spiritual mountain blessed land, he would naturally be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. Water transformed into wood would transform into wind and thunder. Water, wood, and wind were the three attributes. Regardless of which attribute was the main spiritual energy, the blessed land would be the best choice for Qin Feng. The earth map of mountains and rivers lit up with red light one after another as mountains and rivers appeared. This is it. Qin Feng's gaze landed on a towering mountain peak that pierced through the clouds. He took a liking to it at first glance. 7th class spiritual mountain, Scarlet Sky Peak. Scarlet Sky Peak was located at the periphery of the Savage region. It was a spiritual mountain blessed land that All Stars College had recently opened up. It belonged to the area occupied by All Stars College, number 2893. The Scarlet Sky Peak summit was filled with beautiful mountains and rivers. There was a huge heavenly lake, and there was an Earth-class spiritual item called Jade Water Golden Lotus in the lake. This heavenly lake was rich in golden lotuses. The water and wood attribute spiritual energy was abnormally abundant. This was a high-class water and wood attribute spiritual mountain blessed land. It was currently under the possession of the Medicine Garden. Since Qin Feng chose it, it meant that he would become an official disciple of the Medicine Garden. When Qin Feng chose this spiritual mountain, the green-clothed middle-aged man's expression changed slightly. This spiritual mountain was left behind by the green-clothed middle-aged man for the others. Before this, the green-clothed middle-aged man had already promised the others. The green-clothed middle-aged man stared at the black-clothed youth with bright eyes and shook his head. He said indifferently, "Qin Feng, you can choose again." The green-clothed middle-aged man's tone was cold and indifferent. This spiritual mountain-blessed land doesn't seem to have an owner. Qin Feng raised his head and squinted his eyes. The green-clothed middle-aged man's tone carried a trace of disdain. Qin Feng, you don't have to probe. This spiritual land isn't something that a disciple like you can enjoy. All right. The green-clothed middle-aged man's gaze landed on a spiritual, mountain-blessed land on the earth map of mountains and rivers. Cloudwater Lake. This is a fourth-class, spiritual, mountain-blessed land. I have chosen this place for you. You can leave now. After speaking, the green-clothed middle-aged man didn't allow Qin Feng to object and was about to make a forceful decision. What a bossy deacon of the spiritual mountain palace. Qin Feng raised his head and narrowed his eyes. Deacon, I'm afraid you can't make a decision for me. A trace of disdain flashed across the middle-aged man's face, and his eyes revealed a cold smile. Qin Feng, if I were you, I would be more tactful. Young people who are too arrogant usually die very quickly. The eyes of the middle-aged man in green flickered with a hint of threat. If I were you, I would shut my mouth right now. If you can't make decisions for others, then don't pretend to be a big shot and stick your face out for others to slap. Qin Feng gave tit for tat, his eyes shining with a cold light. In terms of ruthlessness, Qin Feng had never lost to anyone. Today, this spirit mountain is mine. After saying that, Qin Feng completely ignored the middle-aged man's unusually cold expression. He directly took out his star token and stamped it on the map of mountains and rivers. In an instant, a green light flashed on the map of mountains and rivers, and an illusory golden seal appeared on the map of mountains and rivers and merged with the star token. A symbol that looked like a towering mountain peak appeared on the constellation token. This was the cave-dwelling golden seal that activated the protective formation of the spirit mountain-blessed land. From this moment on, Qin Feng was the cave master of the Scarlet Sky, Peak's Jade Water Cave. A trace of rage flashed across the middle-aged man's face, and his eyes flashed with killing intent. He almost lost his composure. Good. In his anger, the middle-aged man in green laughed. He stared coldly at the black-robed young man. Qin Feng, I hope you don't regret this. This Qin Feng is really crazy. He actually offended the deacon of the spiritual mountain palace for a spirit mountain-blessed land. The spiritual mountain palace is the government office with the best profits. To be able to become a deacon here, this deacon is definitely not simple. Qin Feng is going to be unlucky. He might even lose his life. The Black Tortoise's first seat Zhao Xikong and the White Tiger's first seat Yang Cheng looked at each other and exchanged glances. Too impulsive, walking out of the spiritual mountain palace and playing with the cave-dwelling token in his hand. Qin Feng sneered in his heart. What deacon? He's just a person who is blinded by greed. He really thinks he's a big shot and can make decisions for others. This middle-aged man in green had really stayed in the government office for too long. He was already blinded by lard. Scarlet Sky Peak, this 7th-grade spirit mountain, would definitely not be given away. Qin Feng saw the regret in Zhao Xikong and Yang Cheng's eyes. Qin Feng did not care about the thoughts of the two. What was a martial Dao? In Qin Feng's opinion, the martial Dao was unyielding, resisting, and breaking everything. It was suppressing all enemies. If one were to endure and swallow humiliation, then what was the point of cultivating the martial Dao? It would be better to find a piece of tofu and die. At the foot of the mountain, after leaving the spiritual mountain palace, Qin Feng walked towards the spirit beast loft. According to Qin Feng's knowledge, Scarlet Sky Peak was located at the periphery of the Wild Desolation Zone. It was one of the few high-grade spirit mountains that All Stars College had recently obtained from a Beast King. Although All Stars College had many spirit mountains and blessed lands in the Wild Desolation Zone, in reality, there were only about 2,900 mountain peaks. Only a few of them were truly spirit mountains and blessed lands. Scarlet Sky Peak was one of them. Scarlet Sky Peak was recorded as number 2,893 in the Spiritual Mountain Palace. It was adjacent to many Beast King's territories in the Wild Desolation Zone. Qin Feng was prepared to purchase a mount for his journey. There was a rather long distance between Scarlet Sky Peak and All Stars College. If one were to rely on one's bare feet, It would take at least 10 days to half a month for a round trip. This was too time-consuming. Actually, there was another method, which was to rent a mutated bird from All Stars College's Imperial Beast Garden. These days, Qin Feng had inquired around the Imperial Beast Garden. Renting a low-grade, gray-feathered crane required 10 points. If one were to rent a powerful mutated bird, it would be even more expensive. 10 points was truly too extravagant for a new student like Qin Feng. It would be more cost-effective to just buy one. The Spirit Beast Loft was located on a street not far from All Stars College. When Qin Feng entered this place, he saw many martial artists coming and going by mutated beasts. Most of them were youths at the 9th heavenly layer of the martial Tao. There were also some Meridian's condensation stage experts. On both sides of the street, the shops weren't selling oil, rice, soy sauce, and vinegar. Instead, they were selling abnormally spirited mutated beasts. Just as he arrived at this street, Qin Feng heard an endless stream of hawking. There were also loud and wild beastly roars. Come take a look, come by. The newly captured 6-winged, snowy lion cub from the wilderness. Look at its shiny fur, look at its primitive wildness. Only 1,000 points. 1,000 points, and you can bring home this savage beast that is comparable to a 3rd stage Meridian's condensation stage expert. Great sale. 30% discount. The fire god centipede that was just captured from the Shadow Spirit Ridge, the king of the 5 poisons. It has the 6-een poison flame ability. Only 3,000 points. 3,000 points. Flowing light, flying, shadow swallow. Scarlet moon scorpion. There's a 6-winged, snowy lion cub here. Where is it? Let's take a look. A few gorgeously dressed men and women heard the hawking and walked over. Qin Feng looked towards a shop called Peng Lai Pavilion. A small, furry, snow-white lion cub had appeared in the cage. This cub was desperately attacking the cage, and the sounds of its attacks were mixed with the power of ice and frost. The 6-winged snowy lion was a powerful, first-level savage beast. Once it reached adulthood, it would have the combat strength of a 3rd stage Meridian's condensation stage expert. If it was raised well, it could evolve into a 6-winged snowy lion king. However, Qin Feng could tell with a glance that this cub was not a 6-winged snowy lion. This savage beast only had a trace of the 6-winged snowy lion's bloodline. However, this savage beast cub was no different from a 6-winged snowy lion. If one didn't have particularly good eyesight, they might not be able to tell. Seeing that customers had arrived, the shop owner smiled. These people were about to be deceived. Qin Feng glanced at them, shook his head, and left. Qin Feng walked towards the shop. Qin Feng's ideal mount was a spirit beast. Chapter 144. Junior Brother Qin Feng, do you want to buy spiritual birds and strange beasts for your transportation? When Qin Feng passed by the entrance of a luxuriously decorated shop, he was pulled back by a smiling young man. This was a young man in his mid-20s. He was dressed in a white robe with big sleeves hanging down. He looked dignified, but at this moment, he was exuding the temperament of a profiteer. You are... Qin Feng looked at this young man. Qin Feng didn't remember when he had seen this person. Junior Brother, you don't have to worry. Junior Brother is the head of this year's Azure Dragon College. You are the center of attention. During the freshman welcoming ceremony, I took a few glances at the crowd and remembered Junior Brother's appearance. The white-robed young man explained. My name is Jiang Liu. I am also a student of All Stars College. I am temporarily the clerk of this primitive spirit beast hall. The white-robed young man was extremely good at reading people's expressions. When he saw Qin Feng's expression didn't change, he immediately actively promoted. Junior Brother, it seems you want to buy spiritual birds and strange beasts for your transportation. Why don't you walk into the shop? Our shop has all kinds of spiritual birds, and the price is affordable. Even if you don't want to buy, Junior Brother can still come in and take a look. Jiang Lu was very enthusiastic. His mouth was eloquent. When you enter the shop and see those spiritual birds and strange beasts, I don't believe you won't be tempted and take out your points. Although Jiang Lu said this, his heart was burning. If it was an ordinary freshman, the white-robed young man would be too lazy to introduce them. However, Qin Feng was different. Qin Feng was the head of Azure Dragon College and had a small fortune. Qin Feng glanced at this primitive spirit beast hall. The scale of this shop was indeed not small. On this street, whether it was the decoration or the variety of spiritual beasts, it was one of the best. Fine, let's go take a look. Gua gua gua. Another customer, another customer. When Qin Feng entered the shop, he suddenly heard a strange sound. Qin Feng looked up and saw a birdcage hanging not far away. Inside the birdcage was a gray, ugly bird. This ugly bird was stripped of all its feathers, leaving only 2 gray feathers on its wings and a small tuft of black feathers on its head. It looked very strange. Everyone couldn't help but laugh. What are you looking at? Have you never seen a bird as handsome as Lord Ba? This ugly bird was extremely intelligent. When it saw Qin Feng staring at it, it immediately waved its wings smugly with a face full of pride. He was also very arrogant. Qin Feng took a look and a smile appeared on his face. Jiang he scolded, frowning at the ugly bird that was spouting nonsense in the cage. Shut your beak, ugly freak. Quack, quack. You're the ugly one. Jiang Lu, you're the ugly one. Your whole family are ugly ones. The ugly bird was not to be outdone. It shrieked with a sharp voice. Jiang Lu was so angry that he wanted to teach it a lesson. Unexpectedly, the ugly bird suddenly screeched. Quack, quack. He hit the bird. He hit the bird. Jiang Lu is bullying the bird. Qin Feng narrowed his eyes as he stared at the ugly bird. His eyes flashed with an unknown light. Chuckling, Qin Feng stopped Jiang Lu and asked, Senior Jiang Lu, may I know where it came from? Jiang Lu glanced at Qin Feng and lowered his raised palm a little angrily. This ugly freak was sent here a few years ago. I think it was brought back from Poison God Ridge by an elite from All Stars College. At first, I thought that since this strange bird could survive in a place full of poisonous creatures like Poison God Ridge, it must be a mutant. I didn't expect it to have no ability at all aside from chirping a little happily every day. Qin Feng knew about Poison God Ridge. The Poison God domain was a terrifying place where poisonous creatures ran rampant. It was said that a terrifying poison god had once died there, which was why it was filled with poisonous miasma all year round. It was hidden in the clouds all year round, never to see the light of day. Shaking his head, Jiang Lu glared at the ugly bird and smiled at Qin Feng. Junior Marshal Brother Qin Feng, I don't know what kind of spirit beast you like. We have birds and beasts here, not limited to those in the water, those that swim, those that fly in the sky, those that walk on the ground, and even those that drill underground. I need a bird, Qin Feng said. Qin Feng discreetly glanced at the ugly bird in the birdcage as it muttered indignantly, a strange look flashing in his eyes. Then let's go to the spirit birds section. Jiang Lu nodded and led Qin Feng to another area. Clearly, the spirit bird section was where this shop specialized in selling spirit birds. As they walked inside, Qin Feng found that the business of the primeval spirit beast shop was quite good. There were not many powerful martial artists who could afford a mount, but there were quite a lot of people in the primeval spirit beast shop. Most of them were dressed luxuriously and were mostly young men and women. Qin Feng asked Jiang Lu, who told Qin Feng that most of the ferals and ferals here were actually captured by elites from All Stars College from the Wildlands. This was one of the properties of All Stars College. There were many mountable birds in the spirit bird section. Qin Feng found a very familiar figure here. Dressed in a red dress, she looked like a phoenix in flames. Ji Huang, clearly, Ji Huang, was also here to choose a mount. Qisha Cave of Golden Parasol Mountain was not far from Scarlet Sky Peak's Jade Water Cave. It's you? Ji Huang, turned around, and her beautiful eyes also found Qin Feng's figure. Miss Ji. Qin Feng nodded with a smile on his face. Qi man. Ji Huang, tilted her head, and a cold smile appeared on her beautiful face. Qi man. Qin Feng blinked and rubbed his nose. He did not seem to have offended this vermilion bird's first seat. Jiang Lu caught up, glanced at the stiff atmosphere between the two, and smiled. So the two of you are acquaintances. All right, don't be long-winded. If you want to do business, hurry up. Ji Huang interrupted. Smiling bitterly, Jiang Lu glanced at the two and led them to a spirit bird. Gentlemen, this is a gray-feathered crane. Though it is just an average feral, it has a gentle temperament and is an excellent mount. This one is not bad either, only 60 points. With that, Jiang Lu glanced at the two's non-committal looks and smiled. If you think the gray-feathered crane is too low-grade, you can choose the red-tasseled crane, though it is slightly more expensive, 80 points. Jiang Lu was pointing at a huge white crane with a head that seemed to be burning with flames. It had a slender neck, snow-white feathers, and bright eyes. The red-tasseled crane was as tall as a person and looked very handsome. Ji Huang was a little moved. Qin Feng looked on coldly from the sidelines. Though the red-tasseled crane was beautiful, it was mediocre in every aspect. Its potential was limited, and there was no value in nurturing it. Qin Feng only had 100 points, but he wanted to maximize the use of those points. Qin Feng was also looking forward to finding a fish that slipped through the net. Qin Feng was confident that with his eyesight, he might be able to find a mount that he was satisfied with. Qin Feng's gaze swept across the rows of spirit birds in front of him. Most of them were lying on the ground, sleeping soundly, probably having swallowed some sleeping medicinal pellets. Qin Feng's gaze landed on a huge bird with dark red feathers. This big scarlet bird was lying on the ground. Flames were condensing on its body. It had a light yellow beak and a big bird but sticking up high. Its bright red tail feathers were scattered all over the place. It looked very sloppy, and its thorns were very eye-catching. Jiang Lu noticed Qin Feng's gaze and said, Qin Feng has good eyesight. This is a fire-type feral, the scarlet flame sparrow. It can spit out scarlet flames, and its combat strength is not bad. Moreover, it has the bloodline of the legendary Nine Netherbird. It only costs 90 points. The Nine Netherbird was a powerful true spirit that was closest to an innate true spirit. It was a feral bird that ran rampant in ancient times. As everyone knew, although the scarlet flame sparrow had a trace of the Nine Netherbird's bloodline, it rarely awakened. Ji Huang looked over and glanced at the huge red sloppy bird. Instinctively, she was a little unhappy. However, at this moment, a voice as soft as a mosquito appeared beside her ear. Buy it. Thank you for your understanding. Thank you for your votes. Although I have to go to work and my time is limited, I will try my best to not fall behind in my updates. 2 updates for the time being, and 4 updates in a few days. Chapter 145. Ji Huang. Er's beautiful face revealed a trace of surprise. She raised her head and looked towards the source of the voice, just in time to see the black-robed youth winking at her. Qin Feng. Ji Huang. Er's bright eyes flashed with a trace of a sneer as she also transmitted her voice. Qin Feng, what do you mean by this? Nothing. Rather than letting others take advantage of me, why not give this opportunity to you? Qin Feng raised his head and looked at the other spirit birds in the cages. Qin Feng occasionally glanced at the scarlet fire sparrow from the corner of his eyes. In fact, at first glance, Qin Feng knew that the people of the prehistoric spirit beast palace had made a mistake. The scarlet fire sparrow in front of him was not a scarlet fire sparrow, but a pure-blooded sky-burning sparrow. Before the scarlet fire sparrow and sky-burning sparrow reached adulthood, they had similar characteristics and looked similar, but their value was worlds apart. The scarlet fire sparrow was only a very low-level beast, not even a savage beast. Many people said that this bird had a little bit of the ancient savage beast Nine Netherbird's bloodline. In fact, the scarlet fire sparrow did have a trace of the Nine Netherbird's bloodline, but it was only a very thin trace and could not be awakened. In a million scarlet fire sparrows, there might not even be one that could awaken the Nine Netherbird's bloodline and become a savage beast. But the sky-burning sparrow was different. In Qin Feng's impression, the sky-burning sparrow was an extremely rare high-level savage beast that had a quarter of the vermilion bird's bloodline. It could control a special kind of flame, the sky-burning blood flame. Once it reached adulthood, it would possess extremely terrifying strength. It was even very likely that it would succeed in nirvana and become an innate vermilion bird. Cheap. With this ugly scarlet fire sparrow? Ji Huang, Er's tone was disdainful. Her beautiful eyes seemed to be filled with flowing flames. Just her beautiful eyes alone were enough to make people ecstasy. Her beautiful face was cold, but in fact, Ji Huang was extremely surprised. Did this Qin Feng also recognize this sky-burning sparrow? That's impossible. The sky-burning sparrow and the red fire sparrow are extremely similar. It's impossible to tell them apart. I accidentally obtained an innate true spirit vermilion bird feather and practiced a secret art to detect the true appearance of this red fire sparrow. How could this Qin Feng recognize the true form of this sky-burning sparrow? Ji Huang's heart trembled. When she entered this area, Ji Huang had taken a fancy to this scarlet flame sparrow at first glance. It was just that Ji Huang had always remained calm and collected. Qin Feng's gaze swept across the cages as he transmitted his voice. Then forget it. Since you don't want it, I'll buy it. With a stiff expression, Ji Huanger's voice transmission carried a trace of urgency. How dare you? Why wouldn't I dare? I'll buy it later. If you dare to snatch it, I'll expose its identity as a sky-burning sparrow. A sky-burning sparrow with an unusually pure bloodline is worth at least tens of thousands of points, or even hundreds of thousands of points. You can't afford it even if you go bankrupt. His eyes flickered. Although he said so, Qin Feng couldn't help but raise his head and glance at Ji Huang. Obviously, Ji Huang also recognized the true form of this sky-burning sparrow. Strange, this sky-burning sparrow and the red fire sparrow look almost exactly the same before they reach adulthood. If I hadn't seen the sky-burning sparrow's introduction in an ancient book in my previous life and knew some of its subtle changes, even with my eyesight, I wouldn't have been able to recognize it. How did this Ji Huang see the peculiarity of this spiritual sparrow? Qin Feng was amazed. What do you want? Hearing Qin Feng's voice transmission, Ji Huang was a little anxious. A sky-burning sparrow. This was a great opportunity, and it was still a young bird. If he could subdue it, he would definitely get an unimaginable helper in the future. Ji Huang was really worried that Qin Feng would mess it up in a fit of anger. Qin Feng sighed in his heart. In fact, if he didn't have a water attribute physique, Qin Feng would never give this sky-burning sparrow to Ji Huang. Of course, there was another important reason, and that was to nurture a sky-burning sparrow to maturity, which required a huge amount of financial support. Without enough spirit medicine and spirit objects to support and nurture, even if Qin Feng took this sky-burning sparrow into his hands, it would be impossible for the sky-burning sparrow to smoothly grow to that stage without a few hundred years. The current Qin Feng obviously didn't have this kind of financial resources. I don't want anything, I just want to give it to you, Qin Feng said. Is this how you give a girl a gift? Ji Huang almost exploded. It's my first time giving a girl a gift, so it's inevitable that I'm a little nervous, hee. Qin Feng winked at Ji Huang. Shameless person. Ji Huang fiercely glared at the black-robed youth. I won't accept your kindness. When I give a woman something, I don't need her to accept it, as long as I'm happy. Qin Feng's eyes were indifferent. Zhang Lu didn't see the strange atmosphere in Qin Feng and Ji Huanger's eyes. He led the two through the iron cages and introduced the spirit birds one by one. This is the white moon eagle. This is the iron-blooded black-feathered eagle. And here is the flower-feathered bird. As an excellent salesman, Zhang Lu dutifully explained the advantages and disadvantages of each spirit bird, as well as the various special abilities of each type of spirit bird, as he opened his mouth and spoke. Well, this scarlet flame sparrow, 60 points. Ji Huang interrupted Zhang Lu's introduction and directly pointed at the scarlet flame sparrow. He turned around and glanced at the scarlet flame sparrow pointed at by Ji Huang. Ji Huang actually took a fancy to this mixed-haired bird. Qin Feng took Zhang Lu's gaze into his eyes. This scarlet flame sparrow's appearance was indeed not very good. It was gaudy, with a raised bird's butt, sloppy and unkempt. Compared to other birds, it was indeed less beautiful. How could Ji Huang, or like this scarlet flame sparrow? Could it be that there was something strange about this scarlet flame sparrow? Muttering in his heart, Jianglu's gaze was strange. At the same time, he observed Ji Huang, Er's expression, testing the other party's bottom line. 60 points, this won't do. This scarlet flame sparrow is priced at 90 points. You see, the scarlet flame sparrow's feathers are conspicuous, its eyes are spirited, and it's unusually fierce. Ji Huang, was resolute and decisive. 65 points, if you don't want to sell it. Then forget it, Jianglu said with dissatisfaction. 80 points. This is the lowest price. At most 70 points. Seeing Ji Huang, Er's impatient face, Jianglu thought for a moment and finally felt that there was nothing suspicious. He had carefully looked at this scarlet flame sparrow and found nothing special. After a moment, Jianglu smiled bitterly. Well, since it's the first time Chief Ji has come to my humble store, then I'll take a step back. Jianglu waved his hand, and immediately, someone stepped forward to open the iron cage, took out the control bracelet used to control fierce beasts, and handed it to Ji Huang. Jianglu smiled bitterly at Ji Huang. Chief Ji, this time, we're selling it to you at low cost. In the future, Chief Ji will have to frequent our Desolate Spirit Beast shop. Our Desolate Spirit Beast shop doesn't only sell ferocious beasts and savage beasts. We also accept live, ferocious beasts. In the future, if Chief Ji catches any ferocious beasts, you'll have to consider us first. The last sentence was the main point. From the beginning, Jianglu didn't take this scarlet flame sparrow to heart. His main purpose was to make friends with Ji Huang, the Vermilion Bird's chief. To be able to become the chief of this session undoubtedly showed Ji Huang, Er's excellence. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that her future was limitless. If Ji Huang, really grew up in the future, just this network alone would bring endless benefits to Jianglu. At this moment, Qin Feng looked at the iron cages and pointed at one of them and said, I've also chosen. I'll take it. That? Jianglu looked at Qin Feng in surprise. Following Qin Feng's gaze, his eyes soon became strange. It was a big white bird with pure white feathers and a strand of hair on its head. It looked funny. The look in her eyes was very cute. She was in a daze, just like a silly bird. In fact, it was a silly bird with a dull head. Chapter 146. Junior brother Qin Feng has taken a fancy to this white sparrow. Jianglu's expression was strange. Jianglu looked at the white sparrow. The white sparrow was one of the few water-attributed vicious birds, but that was all there was to it. In terms of combat power, flying speed, and toughness, it was not even as good as the gray-feathered crane. This kind of white sparrow, apart from looking good, could be said to be extremely ordinary. Even if it had awakened its bloodline and evolved into a white jade-eye sparrow, it was still considered a very bottom-tier savage beast. Jianglu glanced at the white sparrow. Among the dozens of white sparrows in the spiritual birds area, it was clear that this one had the best spirit, and its bloodline was also the purest. This could be seen from its white feathers that had no impurities. However, no matter how pure the white sparrow's bloodline was, the chances of it evolving into a white jade-eye sparrow were quite slim. Qin Feng saw through the doubts in Jianglu's eyes and thought in his heart, this pure-blooded white sparrow is of no use in your hands. But it's different in my hands. I have the blue sea heaven and earth in my hands. With the blue sea heaven and earth's endless water-attributed spirit qi as a catalyst, even a pig may have the possibility of atavism and become a savage beast. Not to mention a white sparrow with a trace of innate true spirit ice phoenix bloodline. Dressed in a black robe, Qin Feng's eyes were indifferent. He did not have to buy this white sparrow. Although water-attributed spiritual birds with pure bloodline were rare, it did not mean that they did not exist. Ji Huang, Er's pair of bright eyes looked at Qin Feng, sizing him up. Could it be that this white sparrow is also different in some way? Since Qin Feng saw the true body of the burning sky sparrow, Qin Feng suddenly had a mysterious halo in Ji Huang, Er's heart. Jianglu thought, suppressed the doubts in his heart, and smiled. Since junior brother Qin Feng has taken a fancy to this white sparrow, then the price is 60 points. 60 points is too expensive. It's just a white sparrow. This kind of savage beast is worth 30 points at most in other shops. If brother Jiang does not want to do business with me, then forget it. There's no need to be so greedy. Qin Feng's eyes revealed a trace of coldness. This Jianglu really thought that he, Qin Feng, was a fool. Qin Feng discovered that even though they were both head seats, the difference in treatment between him and Ji Huang was like heaven and earth. Obviously, Jianglu didn't think that he could sit firmly on the seat of Azure Dragon's head. Therefore, he was prepared to make a one-time deal. Qin Feng turned around and walked out. In that case, take care, Junior Qin Feng. I won't be seeing you off. Looking at Qin Feng's back, the corner of Jianglu's mouth was cold, and his eyes flashed with a trace of sneer. Not just any poor person can enter the great desolate spirit beast shop. Upon hearing this, Qin Feng's footsteps paused, and a strand of gloomy coldness was faintly discernible at the corners of his eyes. Qin Feng's mind flowed with a secret technique. This was a mind-controlling technique that used mental energy. Once it was executed, it was enough to incite all the ferocious birds and beasts in the entire spirit beast store to go on a rampage. Little brother, please wait. At this moment, a slightly gloomy voice came. Little brother, I'm sorry for the neglect. A fat middle-aged man dressed in luxurious clothes came over and glanced at Qin Feng and Ji Huang. Deacon, Jianglu's face instantly changed. With a trace of coldness in his eyes, the fat middle-aged man loudly berated. Jianglu, is this how you do business? Get out of here. Sir, Jianglu's face turned pale. Didn't you hear clearly? A trace of anger flashed in his eyes, and the middle-aged man's tone gradually became heavier. Yes. Jianglu lowered his head and looked back at Qin Feng with a trace of indignation in his eyes. After a moment, he turned his head and disappeared. Idiot! Cursing in his heart, Lin Ping's eyes swept over Jianglu, and a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. This Qin Feng is the person the princess wants to take care of. If you ruin the princess's plan, you'll be dealt with. Lin Ping turned around and looked at the black-robed youth. His eyes flashed with a trace of a smile as he said with a smile, Your little brother, Qin Feng? The coldness in his eyes eased, and Qin Feng's eyes moved slightly. And this deacon is? I'm Lin Ping. I'm the deacon of this spirit beast shop. The fat middle-aged man had an amiable smile on his face. He's also Princess Qingqing's uncle. Princess Qingqing was due Pingxia's title in the Great Yin Kingdom. With a trace of surprise in his eyes, Qin Feng raised his head. Obviously, he didn't expect this fat middle-aged man to be due Pingxia's uncle. Earlier, the shop's staff was rude. Lin Ping glanced at the white sparrow in the birdcage with a trace of surprise in his eyes, and then smiled. Since little brother Qin Feng has taken a fancy to this white sparrow, then I'll make the decision to give it to little brother Qin Feng as an apology. Seeing that Lin Ping's attitude was extremely humble, Qin Feng finally dispelled the dark thoughts in his heart. Looking at the sincere Lin Ping, Qin Feng shook his head. Forget it. Qin Feng, can still afford 30 points. Qin Feng didn't like to owe people favors. Favors had to be returned, and it would be troublesome. Seeing Lin Ping's difficult expression, Qin Feng's eyes moved slightly and landed on the ugly bird at the door. If Deacon Lin is interested, then why don't you give it to me? Little brother has taken a fancy to this underworld raven. Following Qin Feng's line of sight, Lin Ping's eyes moved and landed on the chubby, ugly bird with a small tuft of black feathers on its head. Caw, why are you staring at Lord 8? The ugly bird shrieked when it saw their gazes. With a trace of a smile in his eyes, Qin Feng looked at Lin Ping and said, Deacon Lin, I'm about to head to the Scarlet Sky Peak's Jade Water Cave alone. The journey will be lonely. Although this underworld raven is useless, it has a sharp tongue. With such a pet accompanying me, the journey won't be lonely. A trace of surprise flashed in Lin Ping's eyes. He didn't believe Qin Feng's words at all. If it was someone else, Lin Ping wouldn't even think about rejecting them, and then find a way to pry open their mouth and find out the truth. Qin Feng's gaze swept across Lin Ping. Qin Feng knew that Lin Ping must have doubts in his heart. After pondering for a while, Lin Ping's eyes flickered. Forget it. Since the princess values him so much, and Qin Feng has an old relationship with the princess, then I'll give it to him. There's no harm in giving it to him. Moreover, there's nothing special about this ugly bird. Everyone has checked it, and there doesn't seem to be anything special about it. It's just an ordinary underworld raven. Taking a step back, even if there's something special about it, it won't be able to be used in my hands. I might as well give it to Qin Feng and do him a favor on behalf of the princess. Lin Ping's eyes flickered as he raised his head. Fine. Since little brother Qin Feng is the princess friend, then I'll make the decision and gift this underworld raven to little brother. An hour ago, when Qin Feng entered the prehistoric spirit beast store, in an inn in the capital of stars. Your Highness, we have found Qin Feng. He is currently purchasing spirit beasts in the Spirit Beast Street. It seems like he is preparing to head to the Scarlet Sky Peak. A middle-aged man with an extremely ordinary face was reporting to a valiant youth who was dressed in luxurious robes and had a purple gold crown on his head. Your Highness, do you want us to ambush him along the way? And the middle-aged man made a throat-slitting gesture. No, this is the capital of stars. Even if we succeed, the consequences will be extremely severe. The purple-clothed youth shook his head. Then we're just going to let him go like this? Of course not. How can anyone who blocks my, Hongwen's, path not die? Isn't there a lot of savage beasts in the savage domain? Hongwen let out a strange smile before he lamented. When the Azure Dragon Chief was on his way to the Scarlet Sky Peak, he was attacked by a savage beast and unfortunately died in his prime. The heavens are truly jealous of heroic talents. Chapter 147. Croak Croak, Lord 8 is finally free. Little 8, you've already emphasized this matter for the 853rd time. The youth's helpless voice sounded. On the street, a strange scene appeared. A strange, ugly bird was standing on the shoulder of a black-robed youth. This ugly bird was chubby. Aside from the 2 feathers on its wings, there was also a small tuft of black feathers on its head. It was basically naked. This ugly bird was excitedly chattering nonstop. Brother Feng, Lord 8 doesn't want to criticize you, but your eyes are truly as sharp as torches. You saw through the true colors of those beautiful fellows with a single glance, and chose the elegant and intelligent Lord 8. Qin Feng was somewhat regretful. He regretted agreeing to release this chattering underworld raven that would never end. After paying 30 points, Qin Feng parted ways with Ji Huang. He left the prehistoric spirit beast shop alone with White Sparrow and Little Rascal. The white sparrow that Qin Feng named as Dumbo had already been stuffed into the Jade Sea Heaven and Earth by Qin Feng. The Jade Sea Heaven and Earth was filled with abundant water spirit energy. It was the favorite environment of Dumbo, a water attribute spirit beast. Moreover, staying in the icy spirit spring was beneficial to the white sparrow's growth. This underworld raven that called itself Lord 8 was unwilling to stay in the Jade Sea Heaven and Earth. It was unwilling to go, and no matter what. All right, don't talk later. Otherwise, I'll pluck off all the feathers on your head and make you run around naked. Croak Croak, Lord 8, don't run around naked. Don't run around naked. The underworld raven hurriedly used its wings to cover its beak. This underworld raven treasured the tuft of black feathers on its head. It was its Achilles heel. Walking out of the prehistoric spirit beast shop, Qin Feng headed towards the Medicine King Hall. The Medicine King Hall was located in the All-Stars College, not far from here. After an hour, Qin Feng appeared in the Medicine King Hall. The Medicine King Hall was the Medicine Garden's territory. Qin Feng had become a disciple of the Medicine King Hall. He had to first report to the Medicine King Hall. At the same time, he had to receive the Medicine Garden's official uniform, identity medallion, as well as missions. The Medicine King Hall was a little cold. Walking into the Medicine King Hall, A faint medicinal fragrance wafted over, making one feel refreshed. There weren't many people in the hall. Qin Feng walked to a backstage area and explained the purpose of his visit to a delicate and pretty girl in a black robe. "So you are Qin Feng." After learning the purpose of Qin Feng's visit, the black-robed girl at the front desk raised her head. She was slightly surprised and then smiled. "Young Master Qin Feng, welcome to the herb garden. Lord Elder instructed us this morning that a new disciple of the herb garden named Qin Feng will come to receive the Identity Jade Tablet. We have already prepared it for you. Please follow me." With a sweet smile, the delicate and pretty girl walked out from the backstage and led Qin Feng inside. After passing through a side door, they arrived at a side hall. "Looks like the people of the Medicine King Hall already know of my choice." That's right, the Scarlet Sky Peak is the Medicine Garden's territory. When I chose the Scarlet Sky Peak as my cave residence, the people of the Medicine King Hall had already received the news and made preparations. Qin Feng raised his leg and followed in. When Qin Feng walked in, the delicate and pretty girl had already walked over with a jade plate. On the jade plate was a black robe with exquisite craftsmanship. With a slight sniff, there was a faint, unique medicinal fragrance. On the side of the black robe, there was a jade tablet with a light yellow tassel. "Young Master Qin Feng, this is the special uniform that symbolizes our Medicine Garden's disciples. This black robe came from the Mystic Maiden Hall. Not only does it have decent defensive power, its special medicinal fragrance also has the effect of repelling insects and calming the mind. According to the rules of previous years, you are this year's Azure Dragon School's first seat. After joining the Medicine Garden, you will automatically be promoted to a level 5 inner disciple." The delicate and pretty girl glanced at Qin Feng with a trace of envy in her eyes. A level 5 inner disciple. If it was an ordinary All-Stars college student, they would have to climb for at least several years, or even more than 10 years, before they had the opportunity to climb to this position. All-Stars College didn't restrict themselves to that section. The disciples were all divided into 9 levels. Level 1 was the lowest, and Level 9 was the highest. Using the Medicine Garden as an example, Level 1 was a low-level medicine boy, Level 2 was a middle-level medicine boy, Level 3 was a high-level medicine boy, Level 4 was an inner disciple, Level 5 was an inner disciple, Level 6 was a deacon, Level 7 was an elder, Level 8 was an elder, and Level 9 was a medicine king. According to the promotion rules, if one could become a Level 9 Medicine King, they would automatically be promoted to Xingqian School's Outer Disciple. All-Stars College's other sections were similar. As long as one could reach Level 10, they would automatically be promoted to Xingqian School's Outer Disciple. Generally, when All-Stars College's students entered each section, they would start off as Level 1 disciples. And those who passed All-Stars College's trial were mostly Level 4 Outer Disciples. Only the head of the department would start off as a Level 5 inner disciple. Moreover, they weren't ordinary Level 5 inner disciples. Ordinary Level 5 inner disciples didn't have a Spirit Mountain Paradise or cave abode. This is an Identity Jade Tablet. It represents your Level 5 inner disciple identity. You have to take care of it carefully. If you lose it, you will have to spend points to get a new one from the Medicine King Hall. With a smile on her face, the delicate and pretty girl handed a light yellow jade tablet to Qin Feng. Qin Feng casually took it and kept it close to his body. Taking the black robe, his palm brushed across the black robe. The soft touch was like the delicate and smooth skin of a woman. It was abnormally comfortable to wear. Qin Feng was originally thin and pale. At most, he could be considered delicate and pretty. But after several months of cultivation and nourishment, his body gradually grew. In addition to that evil temperament, his eyes would occasionally reveal a trace of coldness. Now that he wore the black robe, his appearance instantly changed. In the hall, the delicate and pretty girl who was looking at Qin Feng's transformation had a trace of redness flash across her face. Her pair of charming eyes sized up Qin Feng, especially on the latter's face. As her gaze moved, she couldn't help but pay attention to it a few more times. Cough, cough. Looking at the girl's slightly dazed expression, Qin Feng lightly coughed. The girl woke up, as if from a dream. Her pink face couldn't help but blush. Lightly brushing the hair by her ear, the girl concealed her embarrassment. Junior Qin Feng, here are two more Hergarden secret techniques. One is Little Art of Cloud and Rain, and the other is Gung Jin Killing Art. These two techniques are both high-level spirit martial techniques. There are as many as 12 levels each. This is the test that All Stars College gives to the new students entering the Herb Garden. Within 3 months, you must train Little Art of Cloud and Rain and Gung Jin Killing Art to the 3rd level and above. Slightly tilting his head to take a look at the young girl, Qin Feng knew that these were the 2 standard exercises of the Herb Garden. Little Art of Cloud and Rain and Gung Jin Killing Art were the 2 exercises that all disciples who entered the Herb Garden had to learn. However, Qin Feng didn't expect that these 2 techniques would be related to the new student's test in 3 months. Moreover, to train these 2 techniques to the 3rd level and above within 3 months, the difficulty was extremely abnormal. Not to mention 2 techniques, even training 1 technique to the 3rd level and above was an extremely difficult task. After all, these were 2 high-level spirit martial techniques. Qin Feng asked, "What happens if I complete the test? If I don't complete the test, I will be eliminated and expelled from All Stars College." Raising his eyebrows, Qin Feng said seriously. "So serious?" The delicate and pretty girl shook her head. "This is only the most basic standard. If you want to compete for the head seat, it's not enough. You must train these 2 techniques to the 3rd level and above. For every level, you will accumulate 1 point. If you can train these 2 techniques to the 12th level, you will accumulate 18 points. In the end, the person who ranks first in the test will become the new head seat." Chapter 148. Upon hearing the girl's words, Qin Feng's face turned gloomy. An invisible pressure enveloped his heart. At this moment, Qin Feng suddenly felt a sense of urgency. He wanted to rush back to the Scarlet Sky, Peaks, Jade Water Cave, and enter a state of cultivation as soon as possible. Qin Feng decided to set off immediately and rush to the Scarlet Sky Peak as soon as possible. Before leaving, Qin Feng collected his 3 months' worth of salary in one go. As a 5th-class inner disciple of the Herb Garden, every 5th-class inner disciple's monthly salary was not low. Not only did he get 50 points, he also got a bottle of high-grade Jade Spirit Pills. Jade Spirit Pills were more precious than bone-tempering pills and essence-tempering pills. It was a top-grade pill that could strengthen one's true chi. Its effect was 10 times that of essence-tempering pills. Consuming a Jade Spirit Pill was almost equivalent to cultivating for half a month. Usually, a bottle of high-grade Jade Spirit Pills would be the finale item in some small-scale auctions. Truly rich and overbearing. Walking out of the Medicine King Hall's entrance, Qin Feng looked at the extra point card in his hand and sighed. His eyes were filled with joy. Qin Feng's point card not only had an extra 150 points, he also got 3 bottles of Jade Spirit Pills. A 5th-class inner disciple was indeed extraordinary. Just the monthly salary alone was enough to make one's eyes turn green with envy. It could be imagined that the 6th-class and 7th-class disciples above the 5th class would receive even more benefits. Qin Feng shook his head. He had just done some research. If a 5th-class inner disciple wanted to be promoted to a 6th-class deacon, he would need a lot of merit points. Merit points and contribution points were equally important. Compared to contribution points, merit points were harder to obtain. Only by completing some special missions or making some outstanding contributions to All Stars College could one obtain them. In the Herb Garden, there were many ways to obtain merit points. However, most of them were as difficult as ascending to the heavens. For example, cultivating a 1,000-year-old spiritual herb. There was a rare spirit root or a living spirit root. In short, it was extremely difficult to obtain merit points. How troublesome! He sighed in his heart. In the afternoon, Qin Feng bought enough food to last him for 3 months. Qin Feng found a place with no one around. Seeing that no one was looking, he put the food into the Jade Sea heaven and earth. Originally, Qin Feng was going to buy some seedlings to put into the Blue Sea heaven and earth, but he gave up the idea halfway. The Jade Sea heaven and earth had just opened and had yet to pass the 4 major tribulations of earth, water, wind, and fire. Only by overcoming the 4 major tribulations would the Azure Sea heaven and earth become a truly complete inner world, where living beings could survive. At this moment, even if the Jade Sea heaven and earth had a huge foundation and living beings could survive, they definitely wouldn't last long. Out of the Stars Academy, Qin Feng released the dazed bird. His figure flew up and went straight into the clouds. A black robe fluttered in the wind as the white sparrow spread its wings. The 4 to 5 meter long snow-white wings spread open. This silly bird that Qin Feng named as Dumbo let out an excited cry. Perhaps Dumbo had been locked up for a long time. He was extremely excited. The white sparrow's speed was very fast, but compared to the swallows, feathered cranes, hawks, falcons, and so on, its flying speed could only be considered ordinary. White clouds rose in spirals between the sea of clouds. Stepping on the white sparrow, Qin Feng seemed to be riding the wind. The wind whistled in his ears, and the primordial, innate, true qi circulated around his body. The wind couldn't even move a strand of Qin Feng's hair. The primordial, innate, true qi had reached the 8th heavenly layer. The almost liquid true qi in his meridians flowed slowly. It seemed that as he flew into the clouds, the primordial, innate, true qi circulated more freely. Strands of primordial, innate, true qi flowed through his feet and into the white sparrow. The white sparrow let out a clear and joyful cry, and its speed increased by 30%. The way of taming beasts was about the unity of man and nature. The spirit of wandering qi, was nothing more than this. After half an hour, Qin Feng was already far away from the capital of stars and entered the area occupied by All Stars College in the Wild Desolation domain. Qin Feng looked down for the top of the white clouds. Many green cypress mountains were hidden in the clouds. The light of the clouds was indistinct, faintly discernible, and the air was filled with fog. Bang! Suddenly, as he was flying, he saw a red light soaring into the sky from the southwest direction of the sea of clouds. Qin Feng raised his head and saw that the clouds were dyed red by this red light. Qin Feng's eyes moved slightly. This was the direction of the Craftsman God Valley. There was an endless stretch of blessed lands with fire attribute spiritual mountains. Qin Feng could clearly see that there were strands of white mist surging around these blessed lands. Some profound formation masters had set up some terrifying formations in this blessed land. The blessed lands with fire attribute spiritual mountains were linked together, forming a terrifying killing formation. If one were to accidentally barge in, there was an 80 to 90% chance that they would meet with misfortune. Qin Feng only took a glance, but didn't pay too much attention to it. He continued to urge the white sparrow to fly towards the scarlet sky peak. White clouds were boundless. Various large and small blessed lands appeared in front of Qin Feng's eyes. The scenery was indescribably magnificent. The blessed lands of the spiritual mountains were also divided into 9 grades. The first grade was the lowest, and the 9th grade was the highest. At a glance, the most spiritual mountains below the sea of clouds are the first grade. There are only a few spiritual mountains above the 4th grade. As for the spiritual mountains above the 7th grade, there were no more than 36 of them. As a formation master, Qin Feng could keenly sense that these large and small blessed lands were enveloped by tyrannical formations. White clouds were formed one after another. Furthermore, these formations were set up one after another. The formation masters who set up these formations were definitely not inferior to a demigod master like him. Hundreds and thousands of blessed lands were linked together by formations. It wasn't just to nurture the earth veins, it was to establish a sacred land. As more and more mountains were conquered in the realm of savage desolation, this formation would become more and more powerful. In the end, this place would become a true sacred land. All-Stars College, this future super first-rate power, had already begun to take shape. Qin Feng could already sense that some of the spiritual mountains were unbelievably exuberant with vitality. Most of these blessed lands had owners. Qin Feng had sensed more than once that these blessed lands would emit an aura that was as deep as the abyss. In fact, Qin Feng could even see undisguised spiritual lights in many of the spiritual mountains. Clearly, there were spiritual objects that could suppress the spiritual mountains. All-Stars College didn't kill the goose that laid the golden eggs. Instead, they were planted in the core of the spiritual mountains to suppress and harmonize the spiritual mountains. Furthermore, the blessed lands of the spiritual mountains were automatically upgrading. The first-grade spiritual mountain became the second-grade spiritual mountain. The second-grade spiritual mountain became the third-grade spiritual mountain. The spiritual energy was steaming, and the clouds were shrouded in mist. Unbelievable creativity. Qin Feng's eyes trembled as he looked at the blessed lands that were emitting a peculiar aura. Even though he was a demigod master, he still couldn't help but feel astonished by that formation master's generosity. After several hours, Qin Feng gradually approached the Scarlet Sky Peaks Jade Water Cave. The Scarlet Sky Peaks Jade Water Cave was located at the periphery of the realm of savage desolation. It was the territory of many beast kings in the realm of savage desolation. This was a 7th-grade spiritual mountain that All-Stars College's experts had just seized from some powerful beast kings. Chapter 149. Green Bamboo Peak. At the top of the cliff, there were 2 figures standing there, looking at the clouds. One of them was wearing a green robe. His eyes were calm, his black hair was messy, and his sleeves were fluttering in the wind. He looked indescribably elegant above the sea of clouds. The white-robed man looked respectful and dignified. He had a mustache and a gloomy look in his eyes. Wenren Feng, this is the only time I will repay you for helping me enter All-Stars College. The green-robed man looked at the sea of clouds. His handsome face glowed faintly. He was the cave master of Green Slope Cave. Green Bamboo Peak was a level 5 spiritual mountain. It was covered with a special kind of green bamboo. This kind of green bamboo was as tough as swords. The cave master of Green Slope Cave, Xiao Yu, was very famous. He was one of the top experts in the Meridian's condensing realm. It was said that he was already at the 5th secret realm of the Meridian's condensing realm. He was only 1 step away from the Sea of Reincarnation realm. It was said that the cave master of Green Slope Cave came from the Shao family, a feudal family in the Cloudwater Empire. However, no one knew that the cave master of Green Slope Cave had an unbearable past when he was young. Yes, young Master Shao. The white-robed man's expression changed slightly. Since that's the case, you'd better take care of yourselves. Once you're done with your business, you'd better leave the mountain immediately. The green-robed man turned around and glanced at the white-robed man. With a cold snort, his figure disappeared from the cliff. Yes, the white-robed man, Wenren Feng, smiled bitterly. Looking at the back of the green-robed man, Wenren Feng felt helpless. Wenren Feng knew the character of the green-robed man very well. The green-robed man had a cold temperament. What he hated the most was this kind of sneak attack. Thinking about the green-robed man's experience in the Shao family, Wenren Feng could only smile bitterly. Cuckoo! At this moment, a strange eagle cry sounded. Is it here? Wenren Feng's expression changed slightly. She looked up and saw a huge white bird above the sea of clouds dozens of miles away. Staring at the white bird, her eyes revealed a trace of coldness. Wenren Feng made a hand gesture and a green shadow shot up into the sky. Qin Feng, don't blame me. Blame yourself for blocking our young master's way. Above the clouds, the white sparrow flew extremely steadily. Qin Feng sat cross-legged on the back of the white sparrow, with a faint fluorescent light flowing in his eyes. Strands of primordial true qi were flowing in his meridians. In this blessed land of Spirit Mountain, where the spiritual chi was abundant, the speed of cultivation was much faster than before. With just a casual breath, spiritual energy would flow into his internal organs, strengthening his physique. Suddenly, a sense of danger appeared in his heart. In an instant, Qin Feng opened his eyes. Cuckoo! White Sparrow let out a panic cry. On his shoulder, Lord Ba was already screaming at the top of his lungs. Quack, Brother Feng, something terrible is coming. A big guy with a fierce aura is coming. Don't panic. I've already seen it. Qin Feng had already stood up. He raised his head with a calm expression on his face. A few miles away, a huge and ferocious green eagle appeared above the clouds and swooped towards the White Sparrow. Green-scaled windstorm eagle king. Qin Feng recognized this ferocious green eagle that was filled with malice. Green-scaled windstorm eagle king, a level 1 savage beast. Its flying speed was extremely fast, and it had a wind attribute divine ability. Its pair of sharp claws could tear apart any prey. This was an extremely terrifying predator. If a martial artist in the 9th celestial layer of the martial path encountered such a terrifying predator, there would only be one outcome: death. Green-scaled windstorm eagle king speed was extremely fast. In a few blinks of an eye, it had already covered half of the distance of several miles. Silly Bird was already scared silly. Green-scaled windstorm eagle king was the White Sparrow's natural enemy. If not for Qin Feng's deterrence, Silly Bird would have already turned around and fled. Quack! I'm going to die, I'm going to die. Lord Ba just obtained freedom, and I'm going to die young. Why is Lord Ba's life so bitter? Lord Ba had already sat on Qin Feng's shoulder and closed his eyes. Green-scaled windstorm eagle king. Why would such a savage beast appear in All Stars College's territory? It seems like someone is stirring up trouble again. Qin Feng thought to himself as he slowly pulled out the ancient sword on his back. It definitely isn't Xiao Yuchan, Lu Qinyang, and the others. These people wouldn't be so stupid to think that a mere level 1 savage beast would be able to take my life. Qin Feng had a smile on his face. The ferocity in his eyes couldn't be concealed. Screech! A ferocious eagle cry resounded through the clouds. The green-scaled windstorm eagle king was like a green lightning bolt that pierced through the clouds. In an instant, it appeared a few dozen feet away from the White Sparrow. Its sharp claws pierced through the air. Its green wings, which were as sharp as steel, blocked out the sunlight in the sky. Fast! It was extremely fast. A corporeal aura of death enveloped the man and the two birds. Being locked down by the sharp claws, Qin Feng inclined his head. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he moved. He didn't retreat, but chose to advance instead. Borrowing the strength of the white vermilion bird, he soared through the air. From extreme stillness to extreme movement, his body was like a gust of wind as he instantly appeared 100 steps away from the green-scaled windstorm eagle king. His body floated. The dangerous aura on his body began to climb. Innate tidal extermination, sword chi. A sharp, innate, invisible sword chi exploded and expanded. This wisp of innate, invisible sword chi instantly condensed into a solid sword chi that was several zhang long. Innate tidal extermination, sword chi first revolution. Martial path 9th heavenly layer. Innate tidal extermination, sword chi second revolution. Martial path 9th heavenly layer. Innate tidal extermination, sword chi third revolution. Half-step pulse condensation realm. Innate tidal extermination, sword chi 4th revolution. Pulse condensation realm's first secret realm. Innate tidal extermination, sword chi 5th revolution. Pulse condensation realm's second secret realm. Boom! The sword chi skyrocketed like a tsunami. F*CK, F*CK, F*CK. Brother Feng is actually so strong. His strength jumped 3 levels consecutively. In midair, Lord Ba was so frightened by the terrifying aura that he jumped up. His 2 bird eyes widened like 2 light bulbs. What kind of secret technique is this? Innate sword chi is like a tsunami, each wave higher than the last. Slash. In a verbal battle, Qin Feng transformed all of his innate primordial extermination sword chi into the innate tidal extermination sword chi. His body moved violently as he slashed down. The terrifying sword light slashed down like a meteor. Screech. The green-scaled windstorm eagle king was extremely intelligent. Feeling the terror of the tide-like sword light, a trace of panic flashed in its eyes. It quickly flapped its wings, stirring up a gust of wind as it rushed towards the figure that was pouncing towards it. At the same time, the beast actually changed its path halfway. It turned into a green shadow and retreated rapidly. It was scared, but it was already too late. Screech. A tragic cry of an eagle rang out. The green-scaled windstorm eagle king's huge body was instantly split into two. Its huge body disintegrated under the sword light. Pung! A bloody mist filled the sky and dyed the sea of clouds red. The green-scaled windstorm eagle king was killed in one strike. With a flash of his black robe, Qin Feng instantly appeared 100 steps away. His long sword was stained with blood. At the same time, Silly Bird swiftly flew over and carried the slightly pale young man in black robe who was floating down like a breeze. He actually, on the green bamboo peak, Wen Renfeng's mouth formed an O shape as he watched this scene. The green-scaled windstorm eagle king was defeated. Without any resistance, it was defeated by a martial artist in the middle stage of the 8th level of the martial path, and it was killed in one strike. Wen Renfeng's face was pale. One must know that even with his 2nd level of the Meridian's condensing stage, compared to the green-scaled windstorm eagle king, there was not much difference in strength. This Azure Dragon Furcy was actually so strong. Wen Renfeng instantly felt that his young master's future had suddenly become bleak. In front of the green slope cave, the man in green raised his head and looked at the sword light in the sea of clouds. His eyes revealed a trace of surprise. Then his gaze fell on the dazed Wen Renfeng, and he sighed slightly. Playing with fire will get you burned. Chapter 150. You're courting death. After dealing with the green-scaled Tempest Eagle King, Qin Feng landed on the White Sparrow and scanned the sea of clouds. Qin Feng was sure that someone was spying on them in the dark. However, he didn't find anything. The person hiding in the dark was very good. There wasn't even a trace of him. I'll catch this rat one day. Qin Feng snorted coldly as a trace of chilliness flickered in his eyes. The next moment, he urged the White Sparrow to continue rushing towards the Scarlet Sky Peak. Croak, croak. Rats. Dummy likes to eat them the most. Lord Ba jumped up and down as he grabbed the clothes on Qin Feng's shoulder. His two shifty eyes were rolling around. Croak, croak. Under the nourishment of the spiritual spring, the White Sparrow also had a trace of intelligence. When it heard Lord Ba's words, it shook its body in dissatisfaction. The chilliness on Lord Ba's body suddenly increased. He shivered from the cold and covered his naked breast with his wings as he shrieked. Stupid bird, calm down, calm down. You idiot. Are you trying to kill Lord Ba? Two buffoons. Below, in a few spiritual mountains nearby, a few gazes were watching the black-robed youth leave. Who is this little guy? What a powerful sword chi. To be able to execute such a terrifying sword strike at the middle stage of the 8th heavenly layer. I'm afraid he isn't a simple character. He might be the descendant of some big shot in the sect. I heard that the direct descendants of a few big shots have entered All-Stars College to study. Is that true? Which big shot? It seems like he is the son of a few peak masters. However, they all entered All-Stars College anonymously with their own abilities. Then there will be a good show to watch. However, how could a savage beast like the green-scaled Gale Eagle King barge in here? You have to know that our Spirit Mountain Blessed Land is covered with powerful formations. Although they are not activated, those savage beasts are smart. Why would they barge in here to court death? There's no need to think about it. There must be someone playing tricks in the dark, trying to kill with a borrowed knife. Just as the experts were discussing, in a spiritual mountain called Celestial Water Lake, A young man in a water-blue robe stared solemnly in the direction where the black-robed young man had left. The celestial water lake was dimly discernible. Waves surged up like a crystal-clear water mirror. Standing on top of the flood, he was about 24 or 25 years old. He had a blue crown on his head, and his black hair danced in the wind. There was a trace of malice in his eyes. Wisps of water vapor lingered around his body. The aqua-blue cloud robe seemed to have condensed into one with the clear lake. He looked like a dragon king walking out from the waves of the lake. He was the cave master of Celestial Lake's first heaven cave, Yufuchen. This year's Azure Dragon First Seat is quite capable. Yufuchen sneered as he watched the black-robed youth leave. His expression was gloomy. No wonder he dared to humiliate senior brother Zhu Jian on the spot. But he's only a little kid in the end. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been blinded by greed and do something as foolish as forcefully occupying the Crimson Sky Peak's Jadewater Cave. Looking at the towering mountain peak a few hundred miles away, Yufuchen's eyes flashed with a trace of jealousy and hatred. Crimson Sky Peak, that's a 7th-class spiritual mountain. Even I don't have the chance to obtain such a high-grade spiritual mountain. How can a little kid occupy such a treasure mountain? Yufuchen looked coldly in the direction of the Crimson Sky Peak. Not long ago, Zhu Jian had come looking for him. 500 points, plus that spiritual item. Help me get rid of that little bastard Qin Feng. That spiritual item? Yufuchen's eyes flashed with a trace of fiery passion. Yufuchen didn't care about 500 points, but he was determined to obtain that spiritual item. As long as he obtained that spiritual item, Yufuchen would definitely be able to break through to the 3rd secret realm of the pulse condensation period in a short period of time. Crimson Sky Peak's Jadewater Cave, 7th-class spiritual mountain. Ha! Azure Dragon First Seat. Yufuchen sneered. He stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the distant Crimson Sky Peak. A mere freshman dares to be so audacious and lawless. Do you really think that you can enjoy the benefits of occupying this 7th-class spiritual mountain? Let me, your senior, tell you that some things are not yours. Even if you forcefully obtain them, you will not be able to keep them. Just as Qin Feng was rushing towards the Crimson Sky Peak, Qin Feng's old acquaintances had mostly found a place to return to and had begun their new cultivation journey. They clenched their teeth and prepared to fight for the first seat with all their might. Lu Qinyang had become an outer disciple of the craftsman God Valley and had become neighbors with Lu Chunyang. Xiao Yuchan had gone to the Peach Mountain Manor. This was an extremely special place. Peach blossoms formed a forest and jade-green trees rustled. Patches of half-spiritual trees appeared before his eyes. This was extremely rare. Half-spiritual trees were extremely precious, even though they weren't spiritual trees. True spiritual trees were too precious. A single stalk of rare spiritual tree could be used as the cornerstone of some major sections. Du Pingxia also rushed to a medicinal mountain. This place was surrounded by a forest of medicinal mountains. There was an endless stretch of medicinal mountains. Various kinds of rare medicinal herbs were planted in these mountains. Wisps of medicinal fragrance formed into essence qi. Even within the Ur Mountain, one could occasionally see stalks of extremely precious spiritual herbs. Cultivating in such an environment with endless medicinal fragrance would definitely allow one to achieve twice the results with half the effort. Many disciples had chosen to come here to take care of these spiritual herbs. Qian Kai had gone to the Poison God Valley. Qian Kai had been acting strangely. A few days ago, he had unexpectedly triggered a hidden opportunity and entered the Poison God Valley. As everyone knew, the Poison God Valley was similar to the Peach Mountain Manor. They were both special places with very few disciples. Very few people could enter. These two places, along with the Sword God Villa, Mirror Lake Palace, and Devil's Ceiling Pagoda, were known as the 6 secret places of the All-Stars College. The disciples of the 6 secret places possessed some special means. In the past, the students who were able to enter the 6 great secret places were all extraordinarily powerful after coming out. Guan Roland went to the Black Ice Sea's sky-hard island. It was a land of ice and snow. Most of the disciples there were female ice attribute disciples. The Black Ice Sea was home to a strange spiritual insect called the ice silkworm. The ice silkworm was a spiritual insect that breathed in and out the essence of ice and snow. The silk it spat out was a heavenly treasure. The disciples of the sky-hard island were tasked with rearing the silkworms, catching them, and extracting their silk. The sky-hard island had a special cultivation technique that allowed the disciples to absorb the essence of ice and snow that the ice silkworm breathed in and out. It was very powerful. Guan Ruolin hated Qin Feng to the core. After knowing that Qin Feng had become the first seat of the Azure Dragon Institute, Guan Ruolin entered the Black Ice Sea and cultivated like a madman. There was also Yin Lihua, Lu Han, Wang Xiaosheng, and some other outstanding geniuses who had entered the All-Stars College's secret places. There were even a few who had entered seclusion earlier. In addition, there was also a group of experts from the donor group. These people were of noble birth and had outstanding aptitudes. None of them were easy to deal with. They were all enduring and cultivating in seclusion, waiting for the competition 3 months later. When Qin Feng arrived at the Scarlet Sky Peak, the experts of the Mystic Association in Tianhe City had also arrived at the capital of stars under the lead of Zhuosong. Accompanying them were not only Hong Lian, Qin Feng, Qin Gang, and Qin Shou, but also an unexpected acquaintance. Chapter 151. This is the Scarlet Sky Peak. Far away, a huge mountain peak appeared above the sea of clouds. Facing the golden sun, the entire mountain peak seemed to be bathed in a layer of gold. A faint rainbow stretched across the mountain peak. The spiritual energy was like rain, and there were green pines and cypresses. Guagua, Lord 8 likes it. Lord 8 woke up from his sleep and stretched out his head to look. Guagua, wow, so many spiritual herbs. Lord 8's eyes widened, and his saliva almost flowed out. Guagua, Lord 8 is going to be rich. Far away, the mountain peak was dotted with orchids and emeralds. The medicinal fragrance was so rich that it almost melted and formed a rolling cloud. As he approached, a huge scarlet sky lake appeared in front of Qin Feng. At the same time, an invisible force appeared in front of the Scarlet Sky Peak. Strands of it formed a huge, invisible vortex of light that enveloped the entire Scarlet Sky Peak. Countless specks of strange energy were born in the sea of clouds, forming an ethereal cloud. A sense of danger emerged from within. Within the clouds, there was a faint golden light shooting out. This was a warning. Peak protection restriction. Qin Feng glanced at it, and his expression changed. A constellation token flew out from his waist. This was the golden seal that controlled the Scarlet Sky Peak's Jade Ripple Cave. Golden light fluctuated and a path appeared in the cloud. Qin Feng activated the golden seal and stepped on the golden path, instantly appearing in the Scarlet Sky Peak. Who is it? Who dares to trespass the Scarlet Sky Peak? How dare you? Bastard, hurry up and surrender. When Qin Feng landed, he didn't hide his figure. Suddenly, a loud shout came from afar. Several figures pounced towards the place where Qin Feng was standing. The weakest of the figures was at the peak of the 9th layer of the martial path. There were even 2 who were experts of the first secret realm of the Meridian's condensation stage. The 3 figures didn't care about the consequences. Their eyes flashed with ominous glints as they rushed over. In an instant, they appeared above Qin Feng's head. 3 gusts of violent astral wind mixed with killing intent came crashing down. How dare you barge in my Scarlet Sky Peak? Hurry up and accept your death. The 3 of them unleashed their strongest moves at practically the same time. These 3 people didn't ask for the reason and immediately launched a sneak attack. Obviously, they wanted to kill Qin Feng. Quack, boss, be careful. They want to kill you. Lord Ba screamed. The black hair on his head stood on end. Lord Ba's bloodline was special, and he was especially sensitive to the aura of death. First warning. Qin Feng's spiritual sense was abnormally strong, and he reacted in an instant. Qin Feng raised his head and saw the three people pouncing on him. His eyes flashed with a cold smugness. Obviously, these people knew his identity. A surge of anger rose from his heart, and a cold light surged in his eyes. "Who are you?" Qin Feng bellowed furiously. He never imagined that someone would actually dare to launch a sneak attack on him in Scarlet Sky Peak. At that moment, it was already too late for him to dodge. Thus, he hastily raised his ancient sword to block before him. Clang! Three ferocious forces bombarded the ancient sword in the next moment. Three huge forces vibrated in succession. Qin Feng felt that the web between his thumb and forefinger that was holding the ancient sword was faintly numb. Qin Feng retreated a few steps with blood dripping from his hand. His expression was extremely unsightly, and the killing intent in his eyes was about to leap out. "Who exactly are you?" "We are the ones who will kill you." A trace of malevolence and viciousness flashed in the leader's triangular eyes. "Anyone who dares to barge into Scarlet Sky Peak must die. Why are you wasting your breath on him? No matter who he is, since he dares to come to Scarlet Sky Peak to hunt, he must die." The three figures pounced over like cheetahs. They were filled with malevolence and coldness, and their laughter was like that of venomous snakes and jackals. Three faint and sharp blade lights enveloped Qin Feng's body. The aura of death came straight at him. Qin Feng's eyes were as gloomy as needles, and the faint blade lights caused Qin Feng's muscles and bones to feel a chill. They actually dared to attack the cave master. They wanted to rebel against him. Encountering such a situation right from the start, Qin Feng was extremely furious. If it was an ordinary martial artist at the middle stage of the 8th firmament of the martial path, that sneak attack would have killed him. Innate tidal annihilation, 5th sword. The killing intent in Qin Feng's eyes skyrocketed, and a terrifying sword light erupted from his body. His figure was like a violent dragon. Instead of retreating, he advanced and faced the three blade lights with a terrifying sword light. The vast and mighty innate sword chi was like a violent tide in the ocean. When the sword light was released, it was as if the galaxy was hanging upside down, and a 10,000 zhang high tide arrived with a rumbling sound. The terrifying tide-like sword chi tore apart the blade lights released by the three as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Under Qin Feng's gaze, which was filled with dazzling killing intent, the sword chi violently slashed towards the three. Caught in the midst of the terrifying innate sword chi, the three were like a lone boat that could be smashed to pieces at any time. So powerful! A trace of astonishment appeared in their eyes. The three suppressed their shock and hurriedly brandished their blades to protect themselves. The strength of their entire body was attached to the blades as they tried to block this attack. Bang! 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 However, the three still underestimated Qin Feng's sword light. The sword light flashed, and the surging innate sword chi bombarded the three with earth-shattering force. The three were sent flying like cannonballs by the sword light. Bang! 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 One after another, the three figures smashed into the stone wall like cannonballs. The three were heavily injured. "My turn!" Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a trace of ferocious cold light. His figure flashed, and like a wisp of Qin Feng, he followed like a shadow. In the next breath, he caught up with the black-clothed martial artist who was at the peak of 9th heavenly layer. The black-clothed martial artist felt a chill all over his body. He only felt a dense aura of death enveloping him. When he turned his head, the black-clothed youth had already arrived behind him. The black-clothed martial artist was scared out of his wits, and his eyes widened. He let out a furious roar. Scram! A pitch-black and sinister blade light slashed out. Qin Feng sneered, and with a slash of his sword light, it tore apart the blade light. The faint sword light swept past the black-clothed martial artist's neck. The black-clothed martial artist's head flew up, and a fountain of blood erupted from the headless corpse. The bloody scene was extremely shocking. Pung! The black-clothed martial artist's head fell to the ground. He died with his eyes wide open. It was unknown whether his eyes were filled with shock or regret. After finishing off the weakest black-clothed martial artist with a single slash, Qin Feng's ferocious gaze landed on the remaining two. So fast. What a cruel method. How could there be such a terrifying eighth heavenly layer martial artist in this world? The two lying on the ground were stunned. However, when they saw Qin Feng's gaze, they immediately felt their scalps go numb. They shouted at the same time, "Cave Master, please spare our lives. We are the outer disciples of Scarlet Sky, Peak's Jadewater Cave. Cave Master, please be merciful. We only thought that it was an enemy invasion. This is all a misunderstanding." The two's eyes flickered, and they tried to bluff their way out. "Spare your lives? Impossible. Don't tell me you don't know my identity. Scarlet Sky Peak is surrounded by restrictive spells. Who else can enter Scarlet Sky Peak so openly other than me? However, you still attacked. You are courting death." Step by step, Qin Feng closed in on the two. His tone was so cold that it was almost tangible. How could he spare these two? These two were obviously speaking glib words and hiding evil intentions. If he spared them, it would only bring him endless trouble. Seeing that Qin Feng's expression did not soften, and a trace of fear and resentment flashed in his eyes, one of the gray-clothed young men lying on the ground shouted loudly, "Qin Feng, you can't kill us. We are the outer disciples of the Herb Garden. All Stars College strictly forbids killing fellow disciples. If you kill us, once it is found out, you will also die without a burial ground. Who said that I killed you? It was obviously the three of you who fought and perished together because of a momentary dispute." Qin Feng laughed loudly while holding his long sword. Under the two's extremely horrifying expressions, two rays of sword light slashed past, and the two were cut into two from the waist down. Chapter 152. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sound of something breaking through the air could be heard as martial arts experts with powerful auras appeared one after another at the lakeside. Someone's expression changed drastically when he saw the three tragic corpses. SSS. Those are the three great outer court disciples in charge of gardening in Scarlet Sky Peak. They're the three tyrants of our Scarlet Sky Peak. Those are their corpses. The three overlords of Scarlet Sky Peak are actually dead. How tragic. What's going on? What happened? Who killed them? Someone actually dared to kill the outer disciples of All Stars College. Who was that black-robed man? How dare he do that? The leader of the group was a venerable cultivator in a green robe. His eyes were bright and full of spirit. There seemed to be a flash of lightning in his eyes. Behind him followed several dozen azure-robed martial artists. Every one of them was at least at the 8th layer of the martial path. The strong ones had even reached the peak of the 9th layer of the martial path and were only half a step away from entering the pulse condensation period. Numerous figures with condensed auras swept their cold gazes over Qin Feng, and their eyes were filled with surprise and bewilderment. Most of them were united against a common enemy. You are the medicine apprentices of Scarlet Sky Peak. Qin Feng's gaze landed on the revered martial artists. The azure cloud robe was a special robe for the medicine apprentices of the Herb Garden. Clearly, these martial artists were the medicine apprentices of the Scarlet Sky Peak. Who are you? You actually dared to barge into the Scarlet Sky Peak? The leading cultivator among the several dozen cultivators looked at Qin Feng with a gloomy expression and asked coldly. This young man was in his 20s and had an ugly centipede-like scar on his forehead. His eyes were gloomy, and there was a strange look in them. This was a martial artist at the peak of the 9th level of the martial path. He was only a step away from entering the pulse condensation period. Qin Feng observed that the scarred young man's gaze occasionally swept over the three corpses on the ground, and his eyes revealed a trace of uncontrollable joy. Qin Feng took out the stellar token and said indifferently, "I am the cave master of the Scarlet Sky, Peak's Jadewater Cavern. Hurry up and come forward to meet me." As the only fifth-grade inner court disciple in the Crimson Sky Peak's Jade Water Cave, Qin Feng was the superior of everyone on this mountain peak. The cave master of Jade Water Cave. This excessively young teenager was this year's head of the Azure Dragon Academy. As soon as he said this, most of the apprentice alchemist's expressions changed. He stared at the black-robed youth with a hint of hesitation in his eyes. All Stars College's ninth-ranked disciples. Each rank had a different authority. A difference of one rank could crush someone to death. There was a huge chasm between each level. A gloomy look flashed across the scar-faced youth's face. He glanced at Qin Feng and then at the three corpses on the ground. His eyes lit up, and a cold smile flashed across his face. The scar-faced young man stepped forward and cupped his hands. So it's the cave master. I wonder what's going on with these three senior martial brothers. Who would be so daring as to kill an outer disciple of All Stars College in the territory of All Stars College? Please enlighten me, cave master. The scar-faced young man's face was cold and gloomy. His gaze was fixed on Qin Feng. He was extremely presumptuous. He was just a warrior in the middle of the eighth heaven of the martial path. So what if he was the cave master of Scarlet Sky Peak's Jadewater Cave? How would this cave master know how these three died? I'm guessing that they fought to their deaths because of a momentary dispute. Qin Feng glanced at the apprentice alchemists. Their eyes flickered. Obviously, they didn't believe this explanation. Their gazes were filled with doubt and hostility. Kind people were bullied. Kind horses were ridden. The rebellions really came in waves. It seems like these people are treating me, Qin Feng, as a soft persimmon that they can knead as they wish. Qin Feng lowered his head. A vicious aura surged in his eyes like a tide. Looking at the dissatisfied faces of the martial artists, the scar-faced young man sneered. He became even more confident. He raised his head and looked down at the black-robed youth with a cold gaze. Cave Master, isn't this explanation a bit far-fetched? We have some friendship with the three of them and are very clear about their temperaments. Although the three of them weren't as close as blood brothers, they still frequently interacted with each other and didn't have any disagreements. How could they die together because of a little dispute? I think we should ask the experts of the Academy's monitoring hall to investigate. The three outer disciples didn't die earlier or later. They just had to die on the first day of Cave Master's arrival. I'm afraid there's something fishy about this matter. The scar-faced young man's tone was pressing. Qin Feng looked at the scar-faced young man. I've said before, they died together because of a dispute over personal feelings. Qin Feng's tone turned cold. His eyes narrowed slightly. Are you anxious? Hearing Qin Feng's voice turn cold, the scar-faced young man didn't panic. Instead, he became complacent in his heart. Qin Feng was anxious. This meant that Qin Feng couldn't hold on any longer. In the end, you're still too inexperienced. So what if you're a cave master? As long as you're convicted of killing three outer disciples, you'll still have to go to the Academy's Heaven's punishment platform obediently. The scarred-faced young man smiled complacently in his heart. As one of the few high-grade apprentice alchemists here, now that three outer court disciples had died, as long as he could get rid of this rash cave master Qing, with his strength, Scarlet Sky Peak would become his territory. Qin Feng, don't think that you can cover the sky with one hand just because you're a cave master. After all, this is All Stars Colleges. The scar-faced young man raised his head and was about to continue speaking when suddenly a cry of surprise sounded out. A terrifying cold air appeared above the scar-faced young man's head. He raised his head and with a single glance, his soul almost left his body. A strand of sword light slashed down with a loud bang. Poochie! The sword light flashed past the scar-faced young man's neck. The shocked expression on the scar-faced young man's face froze. He turned his head with difficulty. His eyes were filled with a trace of regret, and his lips were slightly parted. I actually didn't play by the rules. I actually killed you, didn't I? Qin Feng's finger lightly flicked the droplets of blood on the sword. Qin Feng said faintly, after scheming so much, did you not think of this? I will kill. A trace of regret flashed across the scar-faced young man's eyes. His head tilted to the side, and with a thud, his entire head fell to the ground with a thud. The entire scene was shocked. The various revered martial artists looked at the black-robed young man with an unsightly expression. Qin Feng actually killed Su Ping in front of everyone. How arrogant was that? How vicious was that? He didn't place anyone in his eyes at all. However, even though they were furious, they didn't dare to have the slightest change in their gazes. Su Ping was the strongest among all the apprentices. However, Su Ping still died with a single sword strike. The cave master had only used a single sword strike. Su Ping didn't even have time to react before he was slaughtered like a chicken. His ferocious aura was monstrous. Now, does anyone still suspect that the three of them died because of a dispute over personal feelings? Qin Feng slowly raised his cold eyes. Dressed in a black robe, he stood on top of the corpse like a black-robed Azura. Suddenly, Qin Feng frowned and looked at the scar-faced young man who was the leader of the 6 sons. He corrected him seriously. "Oh, that's not right. There are 4 of them now. The 4 of them should have unfortunately died in the mouths of savage beasts when they went to the wilderness to pick herbs. Those who submit to me will prosper, and those who oppose me will perish. Those who don't submit will die." This was what Qin Feng wanted to express. Qin Feng couldn't be bothered to play any tricks with this group of apprentices. It was too complicated. It was a waste of time to spend his precious time playing mind games with this group of apprentices. Moreover, it would cause endless trouble in the future. At this moment, Qin Feng already felt that his old rivals had probably started to cultivate in seclusion. Qin Feng really wasn't in the mood to play any games with this group of apprentices. Now, Qin Feng only had one word for anyone who dared to disobey him: kill. If they didn't agree, kill. If they resented, die. Qin Feng stepped on the scar-faced young man's tumbling corpse with one foot. His eyes were indescribably calm. "Now, is there anyone who still has doubts? Please step forward." Qin Feng glanced at the crowd and said indifferently, "I'm the most fair person. I never force people to say things against their will. Everyone, please feel free to speak your mind." "Fair? Speak freely?" One by one, the apprentices turned pale. They cursed in their hearts. Those who spoke freely were all dead. "All right, since no one objects, let's sign together and testify together." These 4 people didn't listen to the cave master's advice and insisted on going to the wilderness to pick herbs. Their deaths are not regrettable. Even death can't wipe out their crimes. Chapter 153. Killing Su Ping with a single sword strike was a warning to the rest. At the lakeside, the 9th Heavenly Layer Martial Path experts stepped forward one after another with their heads lowered. Not only was Su Ping a high-grade apprentice, but he was also the strongest among the 9th Heavenly Layer Martial Path experts present. Everyone's eyes were filled with fear. Even though they had some complaints in their hearts, they were still fearful of Qin Feng's ferocious might. They didn't dare to show the slightest difference and obediently stepped forward to sign their names. "Cave Master, is this the testimony of our brothers? Please instruct us on what to do next." There were also some quick-witted people who took the initiative to surrender. For example, there was a short and quick-witted young man who followed behind Qin Feng with his head lowered. "Luan Xiaochuan, you've done well." The cave master of the Crimson Sky, Peaks, Jadewater Cavern originally had 3 outer court disciples and 5 high-grade apprentice alchemists under his command. The 3 outer court disciples were in charge of the allocation of all the outer court matters in Crimson Sky Peak. Qin Feng looked at this high-grade apprentice who was the first to surrender with an encouraging gaze. Qin Feng couldn't possibly kill all the outer disciples and odd-job disciples on the Scarlet Sky Peak as soon as he entered. After killing a batch of disobedient disciples, the next step would naturally be to rope in another batch and suppress another batch. As the cave master of the Scarlet Sky Peaks Jadewater Cavern, Qin Feng didn't just need to cultivate in seclusion. He also needed to manage the Scarlet Sky Peak's affairs. How many kinds of spiritual herbs were there in the Scarlet Sky Peak? Which spiritual herbs needed to be watered which spiritual herbs needed to be dewormed, which spiritual herbs needed to be greeted, and many other matters were not lacking. If all these miscellaneous matters were to be handled by Qin Feng alone, he probably wouldn't be able to cultivate for the next 3 months. After killing the 3 outer disciples, it was necessary to promote a few of his own people. The Scarlet Sky Peak must be stabilized. If there were any problems with the spiritual herbs on the mountain, according to the Medicine King Hall's rules, merit points would be deducted. Once too many merit points were deducted, Qin Feng's position as the cave master of the Scarlet Sky Peak's Jade Water Cavern might not be stable. He might even be demoted to a 4th-grade disciple. If the mistake was too big, such as the cavern guarding spiritual herb on the Scarlet Sky Peak, Qin Feng's merit points might not be enough to be deducted. Wan Xiaochuan is very smart. She quickly guesses people's hearts. Most importantly, Wan Xiaochuan is willing to offer her loyalty to Qin Feng. As he spoke, Qin Feng's gaze was fixated on the remaining 3 high-level alchemists. Qin Feng saw that 2 of the remaining high-level alchemists had envy in their eyes when they learned that Qin Feng's gaze had landed on Wan Xiaochuan. They looked at the black-robed youth with a trace of passion. The remaining person was expressionless and appeared to be very cold. The Spirit Garden Manager. He was in charge of monitoring the growth of various spiritual herbs. The last one was directly under the Cave Master's command. He was in charge of many internal affairs. He was the Scarlet Sky Peaks Manager. Each had their own division of labor. In terms of status, the Scarlet Sky Peaks Manager had the highest status. Now that Wan Xiaochuan had replaced the Scarlet Sky Peaks Manager, the other 2 manager positions naturally couldn't be left empty. Cave Master Su Jie, Zhao Yuan is willing to pledge his loyalty to you. I will not hesitate to die. Finally can't hold back. Qin Feng thought inwardly. His face was expressionless. Looking at Su Jie and Zhao Yuan, they felt nervous and uneasy. The 3 manager positions were not ordinary. Not to mention the benefits they could obtain by taking advantage of the position. Just the cave residence was enough to make people envious. It was the place closest to the Jade Water Cavern where the cave master resided. The spirit chi there was dense and incomparably dense. Cultivating there would be 2 times faster than other places. To the 2 who were already at the peak of the 9th heavenly layer of the martial Tao, the temptation was too great. After pondering for a moment, Qin Feng raised his head and looked at the 2 who were somewhat uneasy. Good. Since the 2 of you are willing to pledge your loyalty to this cave master, then this cave master will not treat you unfairly. Qin Feng glanced at the somewhat restless crowd before his gaze fell on Su Jie and Zhao Yuan. Finally, his gaze fell on the shrewd Su Jie and said, "From now on, Su Jie, you will be the Scarlet Sky Peaks Manager. All purchasing matters of the Scarlet Sky Peak will be under your management. I hope you won't disappoint this cave master." "Yes. Thank you, Cave Master. I will definitely not disappoint you." Su Jie's face revealed a trace of excitement as he said loudly. Qin Feng glanced at the relatively dull Zhao Yuan and said, "Zhao Yuan, you will be the manager of the Spirit Garden. I hope you can help this cave master manage the various matters of the Spirit Garden. Don't disappoint this cave master." "Thank you, Cave Master." Zhao Yuan raised his head and cupped his hands as he said. Qin Feng's gaze was still somewhat solemn. The Scarlet Sky Peak Spirit Garden was of utmost importance. If anything were to happen here, as the cave master, the responsibility would not be small. The Medicine King Hall had a clear rule that every spirit garden had a fixed number of spirit herbs. For example, the Scarlet Sky Peaks Spirit Garden only had 9 types of spirit herbs. If any of the spirit herbs withered, Qin Feng, as the cave master of the Jade Water Cave, would be in trouble. At the very least, his merit points would be deducted. At the very least, he would be stripped of his status as a 5th-grade inner disciple. He might even be expelled from the Spirit Garden. Wan Xiaochuan was extremely quick-witted. Seeing Qin Feng's worry, he quickly stepped forward and said in a low voice, "Cave Master, don't worry. Zhao Yuan's cultivation is not the highest among us high-grade apprentice alchemists. However, he definitely has the best understanding of the spirit herbs in the spirit garden. With him guarding the spirit garden, nothing will go wrong. Qin Feng nodded. Luan Xiaochuan, Su Jie, and Zhao Yuan will stay behind. The rest of you can leave. Qin Feng said indifferently. The group of apprentice alchemists left one by one. When everyone left, their gazes flickered and their expressions were complicated. The events that happened today really made it difficult for them to calm down. In a single night, all the upper echelons that they were familiar with in the past were all dead. Moreover, they were replaced by a vicious and sinister cave master. If it were anyone else, they would feel apprehensive and uneasy. Only Qin Feng and the other three were left beside the heavenly lake. After a series of instructions, the three of them also left solemnly. However, before they left, they looked at each other with a trace of vigilance. After dealing with the troublemakers, the next step was naturally to pacify the people. This kind of work was enough to leave to the three of them. As long as this period of time passed and the people's hearts were pacified, the Scarlet Sky Peak would be completely stabilized. At that time, even if there were people with ulterior motives, they would not be able to overturn the heavens. Next, Qin Feng would prepare to cultivate the two secret arts with peace of mind. Croak, croak, boss. Actually, you don't have to worry at all. Lord Ba can feel that other than that high-grade apprentice alchemist called Zheng Bing, the others are all very afraid of you. Lord Ba suddenly said from his shoulder, Little Ba, your bloodline has awakened? Hearing Lord Ba's voice, Qin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. Boss, you know of Lord Ba's origin? Lord Ba opened his eyes wide. His pair of black eyes were filled with shock. Lord Ba's bloodline was extremely mysterious. Other than Lord Ba, who had awakened a trace of his bloodline inheritance, there were only a few people in the world who could see through his origin. However, Qin Feng was definitely one of them. This is the second update. There will be another update after midnight. From tomorrow onwards, there will be 3 updates every day. Please subscribe, speed up the update. Chapter 154. Lord Ba's origin was extremely mysterious, and Qin Feng had only seen some intermittent descriptions in an ancient book. As for Lord Ba's origin, Qin Feng wasn't sure either. Qin Feng had once asked Lord Ba, but Lord Ba was too slippery and didn't give him any useful information. Qin Feng guessed that Lord Ba might have the ability to absorb other people's fear, sorrow, hatred, and other emotions. Therefore, he could faintly sense the thoughts of these medicine apprentices. After suppressing these medicine apprentices and hurriedly dealing with the corpses by the heavenly lake, Qin Feng finally had the chance to inspect the Scarlet Sky Peak. He said that he was going to check out the scenery around the heavenly lake. The heavenly lake was massive, and the water was rippling like a pearl embedded on a giant peak. The lake's spirit energy was steaming, and dense water attribute spirit energy was surging from the bottom of the lake. On the surface of the lake, there were ripples of clear water golden lotuses. Clear water golden lotuses were the descendants of the earth tier Fei, jade clear water golden lotus. They had green leaves, pale golden stamens, and a pleasant fragrance. Clear water golden lotus was a high-grade yellow tier Fei. Qin Feng took a glance at the clear water golden lotus. The lotus seed was like a jade green pearl, and his mind flashed with information about this clear water golden lotus. Clear water golden lotus seed. Detoxifying and retaining one's youthful appearance. Detoxifying wasn't a big deal, as many Feis had detoxifying effects. Furthermore, the clear water golden lotus's detoxification effect wasn't strong. It wasn't a problem for it to deal with ordinary poisons. If it encountered a highly toxic object, it could only alleviate the effects. The most precious effect was the second effect, retaining one's youthful appearance. It was a temptation that no woman could resist. As time went by, one's appearance would age. As long as it wasn't a demon god, there would be a day when a beauty would be past her prime. However, The Clearwater Golden Lotus Seed had the ability to freeze a woman's appearance in the most beautiful period of her life until death. There were hundreds of clear water golden lotuses in the heavenly lake. Suddenly, Qin Feng furrowed his brows. Qin Feng realized that the spiritual qi on Scarlet Sky Peak was not as abundant as he had imagined. Although the spiritual qi here could be said to be pleasant, it was only comparable to a third-grade spiritual mountain. After thinking about it, Qin Feng did not pay much attention to it. Many spirit mountains and blessed lands had their spirit qi sealed within the Immortal's Cave. It was normal for the spirit qi to not leak out. Qin Feng walked to the side, and a huge cave appeared before his eyes. On top of the cave, 3 golden words were shining brightly. Jade Water Cave. Qin Feng glanced around. Not far from the Jade Water Cave, there were several luxurious palaces and temples. The water attribute spiritual energy here was abnormally rich. These were the residences of several outer sect disciples. The interior of the Jade Water Cave was exceptionally luxurious, as if it was the residence of a god. In the deepest part of the cave, Qin Feng saw the Scarlet Sky Peak's cave guardian fae in the garden of the residence. It was a fae with lotus leaves that were as big as a wheel. The lotus platform was emitting a jade green radiance. The jade green radiance was circulating and swaying in the lotus pond in the center of the garden. This was an extremely rare earth-grade fae whose value was immeasurable. It was also a cave guardian fae. The Scarlet Sky Peak's spirit chi was condensed on this fae and suppressed within the cave. Furthermore, this fae was a high-grade water attribute fae. Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a trace of blazing passion. Even in his previous life, he had never seen such a precious fae. Even gods and devils would be tempted by such a treasure. Qin Feng's gaze landed on the lotus pond. Qin Feng's body shook and took a deep breath of cold air. He had nearly misjudged it. This was a spirit spring, one that was not inferior to the chill soul spirit spring. The spirit springs, I was in liquid form. Qin Feng tried to take a step closer, but a faint jade green radiance suddenly appeared from the void. Bang! Qin Feng seemed to have been hit by a huge force. His body was like a cannonball as he retreated a few hundred steps before coming to a stop. Boo-hoo! Qin Feng's chest puffed up like a bellows. When he moved his arms slightly, he felt an intense pain all over his body. It was as if all the bones in his body had been shattered. What a terrifying restriction! Qin Feng raised his head. The Xiantian origin true qi in his meridians flowed slowly like the source of life. It slowly nourished his injured areas and cleansed his hidden injuries. In just a short moment, he was almost fully recovered. As expected, the people from All Stars College wouldn't be so generous as to place such a fae on the mountain peak and let the cave masters guard it. They must have invited some powerful mystic masters to lay down an array restriction. Qin Feng frowned as he looked at the formless restriction. As a mystic master, Qin Feng knew that as long as one became a mystic master, one would be free from the restriction of the fae and be able to lay down an array in the air. They could form hundreds and thousands of arrays with just a wave of their hand. However, only mystic masters above the 7th grade had the ability to form a restriction and preserve it for a long time. Restrictions were formless and intangible, but they were connected to the void's vital energy. They stood in the void and wouldn't dissipate for a long time. Some restrictions would even become stronger with the passage of time. The restriction in front of him was clearly a type of restriction. Restrictions were divided into Earth Fiend Restriction and Heaven Spirit Restriction according to their power. Earth Fiend Restriction had 72 layers. When the 72 layers of Earth Fiend Restriction were complete, they could be combined into one to form the even more powerful Heaven Spirit Restriction. However, generally speaking, even one layer of Earth Fiend Restriction was enough to stop experts below the Meridian's condensation realm. It should be the minor celestial jade with God-destroying restriction. Qin Feng sized it up and thought to himself. The minor celestial jade would God-destroying restriction was a 12-layer Earth Fiend restriction formed with Xiantian Imu Qi as the foundation. This was a very powerful restriction. Qin Feng only touched it for the first time and immediately felt as if he was bombarded by a divine tree. Half of the bones in his body fell apart. If he forced his way in, he would completely activate this restriction and turn it into the jade with God-destroying origin light. If he was swept by this light, his entire body would turn into wood and become a withered tree. This was only the outermost restriction. Qin Feng felt that there were several other powerful restrictions inside. These restrictions were linked together to form a terrifying protection that was almost equivalent to the Heaven Spirit restriction. With such a powerful protection, even if a Nirvana realm expert wanted to seize this Earth-grade spiritual item, they wouldn't be able to break it in a short time. With a hint of fervor in his eyes, Qin Feng glanced at the jade water gold lotus in the lotus pond. This was a high-grade spiritual item. If the Jade Sea Heaven and Earth could devour this spiritual item, it would probably be completed in an instant. Taking a step back, even if he didn't devour this jade water gold lotus, Qin Feng's innate divine ability, ocean control, might be able to advance 2 more times with the help of the essence emitted by this jade water gold lotus. But in the next moment, the fervor in Qin Feng's eyes dimmed. After pondering for a moment, Qin Feng glanced at the lotus pond and shook his head. Looking at the restriction here, he knew that this spiritual item wasn't something a Class 5 inner disciple like him could touch. If something happened to this spiritual item, Qin Feng's position as the Jade Water Gold Cave's cave master would come to an end. Smiling bitterly, Qin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. His gaze fell on the spirit spring in the lotus pond, and he thought to himself, "However, I can think of a way to use the spirit spring water." The spirit qi in the spirit spring water has condensed into a liquid state. If I can use the spirit spring to cultivate, the progress of the innate chaotic unity law will definitely be greatly accelerated. Qin Feng's eyes flowed with a strange light. The innate chaotic unity law was known as the number 1 qi and the number 1 foundation. However, the difficulty of cultivating it was also top-notch and required an extremely large amount of spiritual herbs. This spirit spring water was a liquid state of spirit qi. If he could obtain this spirit spring water, Qin Feng's cultivation speed would be greatly accelerated. Something's not right. Thinking about the spirit qi, Qin Feng instantly realized what was wrong. Closing his eyes slightly, Qin Feng quickly opened his eyes. A trace of extreme gloominess flashed across his eyes. All the spirit qi in the scarlet sky peak has actually been locked in this lotus pond, a Class 7 spiritual mountain. This place can't even compare to a Class 3 blessed land. And the spirit qi is still flowing away. Laughing out of extreme anger, Qin Feng's opened eyes were filled with raging flames of fury. Obviously, someone was trying to trip him up in the dark. This is today's first update. The second update will be at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. The third update will be at around 1 p.m. Brothers, please recommend me. Please add me. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.